Good morning and welcome to the February 19th, 2013 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. As is our custom prior to calling the meeting officially to order, we will have the invocation and the pledge this morning. The invocation will be presented by Reverend Mike Sparks from Burnt Hickory Church of Christ from Marietta. The pledge will then be led by Officer Chris Harris from our Cobb County Police Hit and Run Unit. For those that wish to do so, please stand for the invocation and the pledge.
Let's pray together. Father God, we want to come to you this morning and just to express our thanks for the county that you have allowed us to live in, for this group of commissioners that are here today. Father, for the way they represent us and the way they represent you. We pray, Father, that today's meeting, that your wisdom will shine through and that decisions will be directed by you. We do give you glory and we do give you thanks for all that you provide for us and for the recovery that we are experiencing even in the economy in this county. Again, thank you for this morning and for this meeting and for the decisions that will be talked about. It's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend Sparks and Officer Ayers. Before I call the meeting to order, I want to take a point of personal privilege and thank the members of the audience and folks at home who have extended best wishes and prayers and blessings in my direction for my most recent illness. I appreciate that. I've commented to most people that although I had a little bit of a run-in with the flu and associated systems, I believe I am the healthiest person in the room now after having 4 days of R&R. So I want to express my gratitude and heartfelt thanks for those that have extended those comments about best wishes. We'll now call this February 19th, 2013 meeting to order. We have a couple of procedural items to go through, if you would, sir.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Today's hearing will be conducted with the following process and procedure. Each case will be called in numerical order. When each case is called, the applicant is requested to stand and signify that they are in attendance. Then we are going to call for any opposition to signify that they are here also, so that they can be counted for the record. After the counting of the opposition, the applicant and any opposition will be requested to come forward and be sworn in, so that they can present testimony to the Board of Commissioners from the podium at the front of the room. The applicant will testify first, and then the opposition, if any, will testify second. It's important to note that each side only gets 10 minutes to state their case or concerns. There is not a rebuttal process, and there is not a process to reserve your time. So convey all your information to the Board of Commissioners within your 10-minute time period. Additionally, if more than one person wishes to speak on an issue, you might want to coordinate with each other about what you're going to talk about, because you do not want to cover the same information twice, because each side only gets 10 minutes, and you do not want to cover the same information twice. Then after both sides have had their 10-minute presentation period, the Board of Commissioners will start to discuss the case at hand. From the discussion, they may request one or more of the speakers to come back to the podium for additional information. After that, the Board will render a decision to either approve, deny, hold, or continue the matter at hand. Today's agenda is divided up into 4 sections. The first part of the agenda we're going to cover is the consent agenda. And those are cases that generally don't have any public opposition and generally meet the intent of the Cobb County Comprehensive Plan. Second part of the agenda is the continued case. This is a case that was put on hold by the Board of Commissioners so additional information could be gained. The third part are the regular agenda, and these are cases where the board must hear the case in order to address certain issues about the case. And the last agenda on today's process is the other business agenda. And in the other business agenda, this is where cases that were previously approved can be modified by the Board of Commissioners. There is one case on today's agenda which has been withdrawn and will not be heard today. That's rezoning case Z52 2012, Maxine Law Minshew, Revocable Trust. That case has been withdrawn and will not be heard. There are a number of cases today that are going to be continued. First case is going to be continued by staff. That's rezoning case Z47 of 2012, Linford D. Metter. This case is being continued just in case the board may adopt a different code that might help the applicant out. Second case, Z50 of 2012, Arrowhead Real Estate Partners. That case has been continued so the applicant could continue working with the neighbors. Z51 of 2012, Arrowhead Real Estate Partners LLC. That case has also been continued so the applicant can work on the site plan. And also other business, item number 8, a settlement of litigation for Bankhead C&D Waste Transfer. That was continued until the March 19th, 2013 zoning hearing. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to start the consent agenda. Thank you. Cobb County Board of Commissioners zoning hearing consent agenda for February 19th, 2013. Rezoning case Z53 of 2012, New Life Missionary Baptist Church requests a rezoning from RE5 to O&I for the purpose of church activities and an LED sign in land lot 189 of the 18th District. The property is located on the southeast corner of Mapleton Parkway and Community Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval of the request to the O&I zoning district, subject to the following conditions. O&I for the purpose of church use only, including the proposed uses of a sign and outdoor recreational seasonal services locations for the church. Monument LED sign per rendering, including in the zoning analysis. Sign to be in compliance with the sign ordinance for LED signs. Applicant to maintain the required 50-foot landscape or natural screening buffer abutting residentially zoned properties. Upon any type of development around the pond, the dam area and spillway to be improved. District Commissioner may approve minor modifications. Fire Department comments and recommendations. Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations. Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. Cobb DOT comments and recommendations, accepting the requirements for curb, gutter, and sidewalk along Mapleton Parkway frontage or along community road frontage. And the owner developer to enter into a development agreement pursuant to OCGA 367113 for the dedication of system improvements to mitigate traffic concerns. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z53? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Just, if I could ask one thing, on the stipulation where it says upon any type of development around pond, is that the detention pond?
There's an existing pond on the property, Mr. Chairman. There may be some concerns about the dam and the safety of the dam. So if they do anything else to this property, by putting anything on it, it's got to be brought up to county standards.
Okay. So are you comfortable that this stipulation is clear that it needs to be in cooperation with staff's approval? And
Okay? Yes, that's fine.
thank you.
Rezoning case Z1, Ashley and David Staples, request rezoning from MHP and R30 to R30 for the purpose of residential and farm use in land lot 11, 12, 105, 106, and 127 of the 18th District. The property is located on the east side of Holman Road, on the northeast side of Stout Parkway, and on the northwest side of Sullivan Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval of the rezoning to the R30 zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Approval for this applicant only. Allowance up to 2 signs as shown on the applicant's exhibits received by the zoning division on November 13, 2012. Allowance for up to 4 electrical meters on the property. Meters not to be used for additional dwelling or commercial use. Fire Department comments and recommendations. Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations. Cobb DOT comments and recommendations. And the owner developer to enter into a development agreement pursuant to OCGA 367113 for dedication of system improvements to mitigate traffic concerns. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z1? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Chairman, can I ask one question?
Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure I know what this stipulation means, but it's just the way it's worded. The very first one says approval for this applicant only. I'm sure that we don't mean the changing from MHP R30 to R30. We probably mean relative to the stables and everything else,
That's correct, Mr.
Okay.
Commissioner Arnold.
Is that okay? Because what I don't want is for somebody to use, all of a sudden say, oh, well, no, this reverts back to MHP R30.
We could add a sentence to the end of that that says relating to the farm use.
Okay. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay.
We could add, but we will add.
Yes. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you.
Moving on to land use permits on the consent agenda. LUP2, Nefta Gomez requested land use permit for the purpose of allowing 2 adults and a family in land lot 704 of the 19th District. The property is located on the southwesterly side of Frontier Trail, west of Chisholm Trail. The Planning Commission recommends approval of the land use permit for 12 months, subject to the following conditions. No more than 1 vehicle allowed to be parked on the street, other vehicles to be parked in the driveway. Good faith effort to be made to clean up the property. This to be verified by Code Enforcement Division within 90 days of the decision of the Board of Commissioners. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to LUP 2? Let the record show there's no one opposed. LUP 3, Shiloh Hills Christian School, request a land use permit renewal for the purpose of educational programs in land lot 211 of the 16th District. The property is located on the south side of Hawkins Store Road, west and north of Interstate 575. The Planning Commission recommends approval of the land use permit for 24 months, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the Zoning Division on November 29, 2012. Fire Department comments and recommendations. Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations. And Cobb DOT comments and recommendations. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to LUP 3? Let the record show there's no one opposed. LUP 4, Transfiguration Catholic Church Preschool. Request a land use permit renewal for the purpose of a preschool in land lot 306, 307, 342, and 343 of the 16th District. The property is located on the north side of Blackwell Road, east of Tulip Tree Road, and west of Carter Valley Drive, across from Knight Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval of the request for 24 months, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the Zoning Division on November 30, 2012. Current traffic flow to be maintained. Allow applicant to maintain a 3-foot by 3-foot sign for preschool. Fire Department comments and recommendations, and Cobb DOT comments and recommendations. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to LUP 4? Let the record show there's no one opposed. LUP 5, Still Family Farm LLC, request a land use permit for the purpose of a corn maze in the fall in land lot 439 of the 19th District. The property is located on the north side of Malkin Road, west of Corner Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval of the land use permit for 24 months, subject to the following conditions. Days, times, and conditions contained in the temporary land use permit worksheet dated December 6, 2012. Statement of proposed elements dated December 6, 2012. Approval is for this applicant only. Use for the months of September, October, and November only. All event structures to be removed at the end of the season. All tents must be permitted by the fire marshal. No gravel other than surfacing on the parking area, grass field only. Proposed bathrooms to be approved by the Cobb County Health Department. District Commissioner may approve minor modifications. Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations, with special attention to be given regarding the prohibition of structures in the floodway. And Cobb DOT comments and recommendations. Traffic control must comply with Georgia DOT approvals, including police traffic controllers whenever the site is open to the general public. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to LUP 5? Let the record show there's no one opposed, and that completes the consent agenda.
Just
Mr.
a minute, Commissioner Gorham.
Yes, Mr. Peterson, it's my understanding that GDOT has signed off on the driveway for this proposal. Ms. Strickland, is that correct? And also that we have Health Department approval on the portable restrooms.
That's correct.
For the site. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Burrow has indicated that she wished to abstain from LUP 4. I'm going to bring forward a motion for the consent to approve as presented, indicating that Commissioner Burrow is going to abstain from LUP 4. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gorham. Any other comments or questions? Call the question. That motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Commissioners. Let's move to regular cases Z2, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Rezoning case Z2, Garrison Ridge Shopping Center, Marietta, Georgia. LP request rezoning from NRC to CRC for the purpose of allowing a rental car office in land lot 330 of the 20th District. The property is located at the northeast intersection of Dallas Highway and Garrison Commons. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z2? Let the record show there are 2 people opposed. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Wendy Butler, and I'm here on behalf of the property owner and the applicant. The application was filed to rezone the small parcel that's part of the Garrison Ridge Shopping Center from the NCR local retail community district to CRC. After speaking with the staff and after the staff recommendation, the applicant is agreeable to the staff recommendation as well as the Planning Commission recommendation, which is to delete the request to CRC and to allow a national and regional car rental facility as part within the NCR district instead of asking for the CRC rezoning.
Sorry. Just to make sure we're all on the same starting point, you had indicated that your agreement with staff was to delete it to...
The staff recommendation is to delete the request to rezone it to CRC and instead allow the car rental operation in the existing NRC district.
Okay, it's
NC.
currently NRC,
Yes.
and the proposed zoning was CRC.
Yes, sir.
Staff's conversation is that it should be CRC, is that what you're saying?
It should stay as currently zoned, National Retail Commercial District, excuse
NRC.
me. Not national.
NRC,
Yeah,
Neighborhood
NRC,
Retail Commercial.
yes.
Okay,
Neighborhood. And
so
to
let's
keep-
start over
Okay.
and start our clock over again. Okay. You went from NRC to CRC. Through
No, sir.
discussion, everyone at this point
Yes,
agrees that it needs to stay in NRC.
Yes,
So
sir.
that's our starting point.
that is our starting
Okay.
point.
You had mixed some letters up there, and I just want to make sure everybody was on the same page at the beginning.
It's currently zoned NRC.
Thank
And
you.
because of the uses, because a car rental facility was not specifically permitted in the NRC district, we understood before we filed, we asked for an interpretation, that we would need to file for a rezoning. In doing that and continuing to communicate with the staff and the community, the staff's recommendation was to delete the request for the rezoning to CRC, to keep
NRC,
no, to CRC. We were requesting to rezone it to CRC.
correct. And
It
then you
is
talked to staff.
Staff, and the request, their recommendation is delete the request to CRC
Staff. Okay.
and leave
That you're
it as
understanding.
NRC with conditions.
So remove, okay, you're gonna, all right. We're gonna just totally forget about, we're gonna,
Staff recommend-
CRC is gonna
That's
come
right.
totally out of the conversation.
I've
Don't
never
say
seen
that-
it done that way either, but
Okay.
I'm trying to use their language.
President zoning is NRC.
NRC, we
You wanna keep it NRC.
keep it NRC, but
and
allow
a
the
rental car
proposed
office.
use.
Okay, now we're all on the same page. Thank
On the
you.
same
All right,
page.
Ms. Butler.
Okay.
Thank you.
The applicant is agreeable to the staff recommendations, and during the planning commission meeting, some clarification was made to the conditions. The planning commission's recommendation, which the applicant is agreeable to, is to keep the district NRC, subject to the following. Site plan that was submitted by the applicant dated December 6, 2012. The addition of a car rental business as a permitted use with the additional language of for a nationally or regionally recognized car rental business only. Instead of naming Hertz, that was something we talked through at the Planning Commission. The activities of the car rental use shall be in conformity with the business description that was submitted with the letter of intent filed by me, Wendy Butler, on December 6th. Maximum of 15 fleet automobiles, no washing or repairs to be done on the site, no vehicles or trailers used for advertising. Signage will be in compliance with the sign ordinance. the Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendation, and Cobb DOT comments and recommendations. That is the Planning Commission's recommendation, minorly modified from the staff's, and the applicant is agreeable to that. Do you have any questions?
Well, if we do, we'll come back to you.
Okay, great. That's it?
Thank you very much. We'll hear from opposition at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Opposition, please.
Good morning, Honorable Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gabriela Coroneos, and I'm the plan representative for the Heritage Oaks Community Association in West Cobb, and I'm also the plan representative for the Barrett Parkway Dallas Highway CSC. Heritage Oaks and the community of Garrison Ridge are adjacent communities, both of which support county's concept of nodal zoning with lighter commercial density at the edges and greater density in the center because it's a good plan. Today, we are asking the County Board of Commissioners to uphold the Planning Commissioner's recommendation to deny the change to the CRC, as the attorney had mentioned. Okay, we started out with that, and we're in agreement, and we are pleased to hear that the attorneys and the owner are willing to stay with the NRC, because this is a neighborhood retail center. It's right near the Garrison Mountain Ridge. There are 233 homes right on that side. Heritage Oaks has 165, and Garrison Ridge has 68. So we are pleased with that. Now, in addition to that, we support keeping the existing NRC designation of the parcel, along with the stipulations with the commissioners have approved, specifically for a car rental agency as a tenant, okay? Ever since this case was first presented to Plan and the homeowners in December by the leasing agent or the owner, it was represented as a car rental agency wanting to lease space. All joint discussions between Heritage Oaks, Garrison Ridge, and Plan on the case focused on a car rental agency only and nothing else. So if you are in agreement to support that, then we as communities would agree with that, providing that you have the stipulations. However, there was a point at one point where there was some discussion of allowing other businesses in there eventually, and I'd like to make it known to the commissioners that we definitely oppose changing this from a car rental agency if this deal doesn't go through with the car rental, because there's been no discussions in the community to that effect whatsoever. From the beginning, we all met to discuss a car rental there, okay? And nothing more, nothing less, okay? But then we have since learned that, and while this started out as a car rental, as the Hertz car rental, we as communities also agree that there could be flexibility, it could be nationally or regionally. We are also in acceptance of an agreement on that. However, the reason I emphasize car rental only is because we also found out later that the rental agency didn't even have a contract signed with any car rental agency at the time that this whole proposal was made to us. That's why we are adamant about this case being addressed only as a car rental, for car rental tenant, okay? Because we really don't like the idea. We're quite upset that during the course of developments after the meeting on on February 5th, that there seemed to be some sort of like a bait and switch. Oh, well, first it's a car rental, but then maybe we could include something else later if this falls through. That both Heritage Oaks and Garrison Ridge, as well as Plan, are completely opposed to. So moving forward, yes, we are in agreement with retaining the NRC zoning for the Garrison Ridge Shopping Center, And we are in agreement with accepting a car rental agency, okay, as a tenant with the stipulations outlined for this particular type of tenant. But we would continue to oppose any alternate if any other type of business were proposed without community input and a complete review by our communities. Thank you very much for your time.
Any other speakers, please?
Good morning. My name is Marlene Elkins, and I'm on the board of People Looking After Neighborhoods. Plan is opposed to the petition Z2. It became apparent that the applicant did not have actual contract with Hertz, and instead has changed it now to any car rental place, and even suggested that perhaps it could be other uses. We were opposed to that sort of speculative zoning and are still. We had lengthy conversations with Wendy Butler and Alan Ripley, and they mentioned that they wanted some CRC type zonings in the other buildings that were vacant at the time. And we wanted to be very clear that Plan is opposed to any increase of activity in this NRC. The applicant's letter requests parking for 15 vehicles. They said they assumed they'd have about 3 employees. That leaves 12 spaces for rental vehicles. So we were asking that, if approved, that it be a maximum usage of 12 vehicles. In addition, we would request the county to stipulate that they designate parking for the rental vehicles within the existing lot, not only to make it easier for the customers to locate the rentals, but also to ensure that the customer vehicles are not being left in the parking lot overnight. The county has typically denied zonings that are speculative in nature, and we hope that that would apply to modifying existing stipulations as well. However, if it's determined that the stipulations will be modified to allow a car rental place, the county should place strict guidelines so no abuses occur. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak against Z2? Seeing and hearing none, the public hearing is closed, and defer to Commissioner Gorham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John, under NRC, obviously, there are permitted uses that would not have to come back to the Board of Commissioners because they're permitted under the designation of NRC, correct?
That's correct.
And if there was a use in the future that was proposed that was not permitted under NRC, that use would have to come before this board as a rezoning request, correct?
That is correct.
Correct. So there are built-in safeguards right now. If this board decides to maintain the NRC designation,
Yes,
but by allowing this permitted use only.
that's right.
Correct. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to verify that. And Ms. Butler, if you wouldn't mind, could you come back to the podium, please? There's been some discussion about the maximum number of vehicles. For clarification purposes, the number of rental cars that you would have on site will be how many?
No more than 15. That was what we put in the, application itself, and that is what the staff recommended. There was quite a bit of discussion about that at the Planning Commission meeting. And we request to stay with no more than 15 as requested. You won't often have a case where all of these cars are sitting there because they're going to be out and leased, and there would not be cars there overnight or customer cars that are left there.
Okay, and you're projecting 3 employees possible at one time at this location?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And the 15 includes that. The car
Oh,
rental
it does
facility
include
would
the 15?
have 12, and then knowing
Oh.
that there would be 3 as well, so that's why we're
Thank
keeping
you.
it at 15
Thank you.
parking
So there will be
spaces.
15 vehicles associated with this business?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. I approve, I
Appreciate it.
appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, God, that's pretty bad when you're reading my mind, Tim. I don't know. Anyway, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm prepared to make a motion.
Please do.
Okay, the motion is, and hopefully this is not confusion, that we delete the rezoning, the CRC rezoning request to NRC. and maintain the NRC designation at this site, to include all staff's comments and recommendations, to include the Planning Commission's comments and recommendations, and any other comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict with those mentioned.
I'll second it, and can I just make a quick comment in support of Commissioner Gorham, and just kind of talk about the speculative. You know, in this economy, with the timeline that it takes for an applicant to go through rezoning, and when you have a stipulation they have to change, it can be 90 days. They'll lose the possible tenant. So I don't look at this as speculative. It's just there's a list that had no car rental on there, and so what happens, whether it's Hertz or whoever, I mean, everybody's come to agreement, but it's not really speculative. What it is our process takes 90 days, and so sometimes applicants have to come, you know, they've identified a particular type of business that everybody has come and agreed to. It's just they don't want to lose the business. So.
And I believe the Planning Commission covered that nicely when they recommended that it's a nationally or regionally recognized car rental business only. So I think we have the safeguards built in.
Thank you. We have a motion and we have a proper second. Are there any other comments from the board? Call the question. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Commissioners. Next case, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Rezoning case Z3, Retreat at Lost Mountain Homeowners Association Incorporated. Request rezoning from CS with stipulations to CS with stipulations for the purpose of amending the zoning conditions of the existing residential subdivision in land lot 384 and 431 of the 19th district. The property is located on the southerly side of Lost Mountain Road and on the north side of Macklin Road. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z3? Let the record show there are 2 people opposed to the application. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
How many in opposition? Are we still counting? Thank you, Joe.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Michael Miller, and I live at 3000 Ellis Road, Kennesaw. I'm the president of the Retreat at Lost Mountain Homeowners Association, and the association is the applicant in this, but actually representing 18 separate homeowners, all of whom are co-applicants, excuse me, as well as the neighborhood as a whole. This case was heard and unanimously approved by the Planning Commission, and I just want to state right out of the box that this is not a request to remove, reduce, or destroy a buffer, but instead it's simply to allow fencing within the buffer while retaining all the other requirements and limitations of that. The next slide is a close-up of the subdivision from the final plat, and the area we're talking about is highlighted in green. I do want to acknowledge that if you look on the top, you'll see Mr. Barrow's name is highlighted, and I know that he is here at the Planning Commission. He pointed out that he has an issue, a separate issue with one of the owners inside our subdivision who has indeed not kept with the buffer behind his house, and that's a completely separate issue. It's on the other side of the subdivision, and we completely acknowledge that he's got that issue. It's my understanding that he's been working with inspections to handle that. It hasn't quite yet been resolved, but I do want to acknowledge that his concerns are absolutely legitimate, but it's not what we're talking about in this application. The request here is to simply allow these 18 homeowners to install a fence that extends into what is currently a required landscape buffer. It's a 20-foot buffer, and the result of this, while I understand the intention of a conservation easement or a conservation subdivision, the result is you end up with a 20-foot strip between 2 fences that does not get taken care of, and the buffer is still intact. If you look here, on the left you see an excerpt from the Cobb GIS map, which you can clearly see inside the property line there is a buffer. That picture was taken apparently in around this time last year, and thanks to Google We do have a more current photo taken in the summer, and as you look at it, you can clearly see that there's plenty of vegetation there and it's been maintained. I would like to take just a moment and point out what I think is a very salient point and address a couple of the comments that were made at the Planning Commission meeting. What you see here is the survey, the original survey of the property, and I've clouded around the western boundary, which is where this buffer exists. And what you'll see here, this is a close-up of it. There is already an existing fence inside what is now the buffer. There's a chain link fence there. It was there at the time the buffer was created, and it is, again, it's inside the buffer, so it's across the property line, and the neighbors to the rear each connect to that, such that there is fencing inside that buffer already. You'll also notice on here, I'll come back to it in a moment, that prior to the development of the property, Tranquil Lane dead-ended into a driveway that led to a house. On the next photo, you will see that, this is the subdivision as a whole. It seems to be very much intact. The buffers have been maintained, and it's been said that this subdivision has violated a lot of that, and it's not been kept according to plan, but I think this photo shows otherwise. One specific comment was made that the stream buffers have been violated inside this, and if you assume are they seeing this as well? You'll see here that the two existing streams on the property are designated here. This is from the Cobb GIS maps. If you toggle the aerial onto that, you'll see that, just go ahead and hit next. You'll see that that's exactly where the open space is, that indeed those buffers have absolutely been respected and protected. So that is not an issue. There was a complaint in July of 2012 stating that there was a fence installation and grading in an undisturbed buffer. And it's fair to look at the area right behind what we're talking about that is most visible to the neighbors. Tranquil Lane dead ends into the subdivision. And you can see here, I can see here, and if you spend enough time, you can see that what was required was a concrete flume was to be installed at the end. There's a head wall installed, 2 catch basins, and the water line. So during development, yes, indeed, there was some clearing and some grading in that area to put in the required utilities, but there's not been anything further than that. And again, that was where the prior driveway is. You can see from this aerial photo, you can actually see those improvements, and you can also see here the tree-safe fence. And if you look closely, you can see the existence of a chain link fence that was already there. So to the extent homeowners inside the subdivision put their fence where the tree save is, you end up with this dead strip that's just, nothing's happening in it, and it's not being maintained, and it's not adding. But again, the folks who have installed fences have not removed any trees. As a result of the complaint, the inspector came out and filed this report, and that may be a little hard to read what I've highlighted, so I've blown that up on the next slide, actually 2 slides. This was Mr. Jones' report, and it says it's been determined that no erosion and sediment control violations were noted in the inspection and found no visual evidence of any land disturbance activity being conducted in the buffers. One of the complaints was that there had been clearing and grading inside those buffers, and that's just, there is no evidence of that. So the last thing I would show you is I'll go back to the plat. If you look at what was originally intended and zoned, and then you go to the next and you see, this is what a conservation subdivision is supposed to look like. We're simply asking for these 18 homeowners to be able to extend their fence to the rear of their property line, which already has a fence existing inside the buffer. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are you speaking in favor or in opposition?
In favor.
Thank you, please.
My name's Todd Veal, and I live at 4512. One of the properties, I have a PowerPoint, and not to repeat anything that Mr. Miller said, but I do have a couple of, it should be in the folder. Yep, there you go. This is just a title page. That's the plat that he showed you. Lots 77 through 64 are the ones affected on this. That's the picture that he showed you with the GIS. That's my fence right there, and I'm just basically showing that we didn't have to take down any trees to put the fence up. Right there, if we went on the other side of the big pine tree because the neighbors behind us actually planted a whole row of cypress trees on my property right before we moved in. And the arrow is pointing to the stake, and right behind that stake is the pen. And just to show you that people are violating this, and it's not just us. There's a picture of the home if you go to Google Street View, and it's a hard picture to look at, but if you really look down in there, you can see that there's no trees back there that we took down. You can clearly see that their house is there. You can see through that, and we didn't go in there and take down any trees. That's the letter that Mr. Miller talked about again, and here's some more fences in the property that show that we've gone around trees. We haven't gone and, we were accused of just going in and clear cutting. We haven't clear cut anything. We just went around the trees that were there, and there's a drainage easement that goes back there that shows that they, the developer, when they came in, actually came through and cleared that land, not us. And more pictures of the fence, more pictures showing how people have gone around the trees. And then there's another picture showing what the neighborhood looked like before a house was there and how we haven't gone and cleared out anything. And there's a picture of one of the people who are against us. She had to move her fence in 2009, and that shows where she moved her fence back, and there's still existing fences in that buffer. And these are the people that put this in place, but yet they're in violation of it themselves. And then there's the survey Mr. Miller showed you. And then there's the house, and as you can see through there, that's Tranquil Lane where it comes to an end. You can see through there that we didn't go through there and clear it out. You can still see through there. And she stated that, neighbors have gone through and clearly wiped out all those trees. That's a picture where you can see her house. Those trees still look that way. Nothing has changed. And then here's some pictures of showing the fences. There's chain link fences, there's wire fences, there's all kinds of fences. The picture to the right shows our neighborhood is to the right. And they have a fence, and clearly 2-3 feet on the other side of that fence is one of our property stakes. That shows that they are in violation. They are have a fence in that buffer zone. And then here's another one that shows. And then this is what's going on in between that land. In between their property and our property in this maintained natural buffer is debris. Is just junk that they're throwing back there because they know nobody's going to do anything with that land. We'll just chuck all this dead limbs and wood that we're not using and all that stuff. And if we're allowed to put a fence up in our property and we can maintain that and protect our property from our dogs getting out and other animals coming in. So just wanted to state that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Opposition, please.
Good morning, I'm Gene Barrow, and I own the property that butts back on the east side of the property there. And I'm opposed to it, and I'll tell you why, because back in '05, I think it was, I worked hard with the developers, met several times to get them to put the stipulations in the zoning in there. I have no issue at all on the west side there that they're talking to. I don't know no problems about that property at all. But on my property there, at that time, we spent, I think it was about $11,000 planting trees down to our side there. And then a stone wall I put there, was about $33,000, I think it was, I paid for that wall to give some privacy. And in the meantime, the person there, I don't know his name, but they're on Stone Mountain Court that backs up against me. They have encroached and got the whole buffer all the way back to my property. I mean, they even had the lawnmower in there. And at one time, I came home and they had a little bobcat there pushing the stuff up the side of it. And I've been strictly opposed to the east side. I don't know nothing about the west side, what the gentleman was talking about. I have no concern of that, but I didn't even know anything was wrong. But I do oppose what's going on the east side, and I just oppose the zoning completely on that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Burrow. Any other opposition?
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. I believe at the last commission meeting, the woman that stood up was talking about this zoning, and it's one of the failed things that got redone and refigured, and from what they've been showing us, the buffers should have been put in first. You know, when these guys come before you and say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, but they build everything and then that comes last, that's the problem. They have to come first. And from what I see, wooden fences, these fences, I've been around a long time. Those pine trees are going to grow up, they're going to fall down, they're going to crush everybody's fences. So the fact that the small stuff, the hardwoods that come up between them, if you go in there and start whacking them all out thinking you're keeping it clean, these things come in sections. Pine trees are good for maybe up to 40 years, and then they're just, you know, first windstorm, they've come down, their limbs fall in the ice storms. What you want is other growth. And I mean, this whole idea of what looks jumbled, nobody should be throwing trash back there if it's a buffer. But, and I'm just saying this as somebody that, you know, can understand these things because I've been around long enough, that if you know, the double row of fences, it's problematic, but the buffer should, you know, you need to be planting holly and stuff like that, stuff that'll obscure and create what they're trying to do and naturally.
Well, I appreciate your comments, but the issue in front of us is nothing about the planting, it's about the fences, and I appreciate your point.
And the animal thing, it's like you can use electric fencing. There's other things that can be done, but
thank you.
All these things look like you're creating a war, and it's problematic because it's a DMZ what you create.
Appreciate
Thanks.
that. Sure, the community appreciate your comments. Thank you. Any other opposition? Commissioner Gorham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an example of working on an ordinance and which there was a lot of work put on the CS ordinance, and I believe we formed committees and looked at it and thought that we had addressed every condition that we possibly could address with a CS. And unfortunately, there are unintended consequences. And I would ask staff to somewhat look back at CS under the guise that most people want fences these days. They want a fence in their properties, and if we need to tweak that CS in any way to make it a better functioning ordinance, we may want to do that. I know it's come up in the past years on how do you handle that buffer? Do we make it part of the lot? Do we not make it part of the lot? Do we make it part of the community green space? But I think we're seeing that when we do allow fences, we may end up with a dead space, which is certainly what we do not want to end up, is a dead space between two property owners. With that being said, the request by the individuals living there is to be able to put up a fence within that buffer. Which I think at this point is a reasonable request as long as it's done with due care and consideration. But there's another issue out there, whether or not there has been any clear cutting done or any intrusion as far as removing planting materials from that buffer. I know Mr. Barrow does not live along this area there, but I would like to make a recommendation to be included as part of my stipulations, and I'll wait until I get ready with my motion, that would address an inspection of that buffer and any remediation that needs to take place. With that being said, I'm prepared to make a motion on this case here, and that is to make a motion to amend previous stipulation on this case Z3 to allow wooden privacy fences or decorative metal fences no taller than 6 feet within the designated buffer, which buffer shall otherwise remain in place, to include the Planning Commission's comments and recommendations, all staff comments and recommendations, and all previous stipulations and conditions not otherwise in conflict to remain in effect. And I would like to add one additional stipulation, that the county arborist visit this property to determine if any of the 20-foot buffer has been removed or diminished. If removed or diminished, then the individual lot owners are required to replant the 20-foot buffer to county standards. The replant plan must be approved and inspected by the county arborist. Any additional lot owner that is found to have buffer area not meeting the county standards shall have the area replanted within 180 days of today's decision. And we are in prime planting season right now, so that should work very fine. Mr. Chairman, that's my motion.
There's a motion and a second. Let me, for conversation, if a homeowner, I'm asking the question, if a homeowner goes to put in their fence and they find out that they got a lot of debris and dead wood, and are they able to remove that stuff?
And John, I think they are, because that comes under the term of a natural maintained buffer, that you're allowed to remove kudzu and dead limbs and dead trees.
Okay, thank you. And if they wanted to replant something, if they wanted to plant a hardwood in their buffer, is that allowed, or
It
is that
would
going
be,
to come
but
back?
they, based on Commissioner Gorham's motion, it would need to be reviewed and approved by the county arborist.
Perfect, thank you, I appreciate that. We have a motion and proper second. Is there any other comments? Call the question. Motion carries 5-0. Appreciate everyone's support and work on that. Thank you. Next case, please.
Yes, sir. Rezoning case Z4, Trayton Homes LLC. Request rezoning from R30 to R20 for the purpose of single-family residential and land lot 146 of the 20th District. The property is located on the easterly side of Mars Hill Church Road, northeasterly of the intersection of Giles Road and Mars Hill Church Road. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z4? Please raise your hands. Let the record show there are 4 people here in opposition. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Mr. Moore, good morning.
Good morning. And for the record, I'm Kevin Moore, here on behalf of the property owner and the applicant in this application for rezoning, the applicant being Trayton Homes. This property is 52 acres. It's located on Mars Hill Church Road. And what is being proposed is a rezoning from its existing category of R30 to R20 for a single-family traditional neighborhood and development on Mars Hill Church Road. I'm going to turn to the site plan and address some of the features that have changed or been revised since the Planning Commission recommendation for approval, which we believe have addressed certain issues that were brought to light at the Planning Commission hearing and that Trayton has taken upon itself to do. Just to show you the general location, this is Mars Hill Church Road. The proposed rezoning of the approximate 52 acre site. This property, as far as adjoining developments, is adjoined on one side by an existing R20 developed subdivision here, an existing R20 developed subdivision here. There are also residential homes on both sides of the property across Mars Hill Church, and to the rear with properties that are zoned a variety of R30 and greater, as well as some R20 properties. As development has occurred along Mars Hill Church Road, there are various categories. What is being proposed at this point is an R20 subdivision. We are not proposing that there be any variances included as to lot size or setbacks. The total number of homes is 81 is what is proposed at this point, which is a net density of approximately 1.5 units per acre. So this is not a plan which attempts to max out the number of homes. It's very respective of the surrounding community and surrounding areas. As you know, a typical or R20 subdivision will yield about 1.75 units per acre, and this is obviously well below that. A couple of points I want to have for you or highlight on this proposed plan. First deals with the cemetery. This is Mars Hill Church Cemetery. It's been there for over 100 years. Mr. Richards, who's here, also has been heavily involved in the maintenance of that cemetery. We have revised the site plan to ensure that a small portion of property located right here will be included as part of the cemetery property, which was the desire of this owner. And we have shown that that has now been cut out. Trayton went ahead and retained R.S. Webb and Associates, an expert in cemetery and locations and taking care and protecting and preserving our cemeteries, and we've worked with the Cobb Cemetery Preservation Commission in that regard as well to ensure that we've relocated the cemetery property line, as well as put in place, after we've relocated the cemetery property line, a 35-foot undisturbed buffer. I just want to note for the record that this buffer does include all the cemetery property, so the buffer comes along here and also goes all the way to the road. We have agreed, and Trayton has agreed, to all comments and recommendations made by the Cobb Cemetery Preservation Commission, which includes this buffer coming to the road, as well as the fence that will be installed, as you're well aware, as part of cemetery preservation, a fence that will be placed on the buffer line that also goes all the way to the road. And we believe we've addressed any issues with the cemetery in concert and help with Ms. Hong and the Cemetery Preservation Commission. In addition, we have also relocated the detention pond to the rear. This detention pond previously was in this corner. We've now been able to slide that to what we think is a better location after doing some additional field work with our engineers to determine that we can place this detention pond, which is required in this location. That way it puts it adjacent to this stream buffer. You see there's a stream that traverses a portion of this property. We have accounted for all of the required stream buffers. This will put a detention pond up against the stream buffer, but that also adds for undisturbed buffer area that otherwise is not there. So we actually think that's a benefit to the adjoining residents, and we've discussed that with those adjoining residents, Mr. Richards in particular, whose house is here and lives there. We think that's an improvement as well. Also, the third major change or revision to the site plan deals with this front entrance. A lot of the comments some of the comments at the Planning Commission meeting dealt with how to handle traffic safety along Mars Hill Church Road. Originally, this entrance was aligned with this Stillhouse Lane here, and it has been moved down to a more central location in concert with DOT, so that the appropriate site distance can be achieved, and what we believe is a safer entrance location there. In addition, we have agreed with DOT that there will be the installation of a left-hand turn lane in Mars Hill Church Road that will be done by the developer, by Trayton Homes. This left-hand turn lane will allow for limited stacking and allow for free flow of traffic in both directions, which also will help ease any impact of this development on traffic on Mars Hill Church Road. I also want to turn to the pictures, if you will. Trayton Homes has been building and developing subdivisions here in Cobb County and in metropolitan Atlanta since the early 1970s. They're a Cobb County-based home builder, and I certainly believe one of our best. The proposed homes for this subdivision, he's just going to flip through those pictures so that you can, if you're not familiar with the type of home and the quality of home that Trayton builds, you can see what is being proposed for this subdivision. And certainly, these homes are of great quality and certainly rise and meet the level that we are all accustomed to when it comes to Trayton Homes. You can see that we have a mixture of materials. Price points are expected to be in the 300s, and Trayton Home subdivisions that I'm certainly familiar with, those price points tend to rise in each and every circumstance. We have stipulations that we have put together in a stipulation letter that's dated February 13th, 2013, which incorporate all of the stipulations and include the homes that you are seeing now and the stipulations that I have discussed with you through the site plan, which include agreement with all of staff's comments and recommendations, including DOT, which includes the left-hand turn lane on Mars Hill Church Road, which includes the relocation of the detention pond, and includes also these photographs as part of the proposed rezoning. This proposed rezoning application has been recommended by staff for approval with these comments and with these conditions that Trayton has put forth. In addition, it was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission, and since that Planning Commission recommendation, we have gone back, which is why the stipulation letter is dated afterwards, gone back to revise the site plan to address what we felt were the concerns of the residents and make sure those were being addressed in a substantive manner. Very much appreciate working with Ms. Hong and the Cobb Cemetery Preservation Commission, as well as Mr. Richards, with what we believe is a very good and an excellent zoning proposal and what will be another excellent Trayton Homes subdivision in West Cobb. I'm here to answer any questions. Cliff Poston, principal of Trayton Homes, is likewise here, and we both can answer any questions that you may have, and we certainly respectfully request your approval of this rezoning application. Thank you.
Opposition, please.
Good morning. My name's Robert Bruce. I have 11 acres on the southern boundary of the proposed development. I would be remiss if I didn't say I didn't appreciate having to go from R30 to R20, but that aside. I just have two concerns. One is the silt runoff, because we're not looking at it yet, but below that southern boundary, or whichever boundary, the lower boundary is a branch that runs through there. And we had the same problem with the Richardson's farm, which washed across Ackworth West Road onto my property, all that red clay. So I'm looking forward to then, once they strip this, that all that silt ending up in that branch. And I really don't see it there, unless I'm turned around.
Can you?
Oh yeah, there it is.
Okay.
It'll be on the right side of the picture. The other thing is a safety issue. I'm a little concerned. I don't know how it was when you grew up, but the sight of water, a branch or anything, and off we would go. We're looking for crawdads and tadpoles and things like that. I'm concerned there are pockets of water that are deep enough that a child could drown. Is there a possibility of putting a fence across that lower boundary for that purpose and that alone? That being said, I have nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bruce. Any other speakers, please?
Thank you. My name's Jimmy Richards. I'm a president of Mars Hill Memorial Association that takes care of the 176-year-old cemetery that is next door to this development, and appreciate the Cobb Cemetery Commission, Ms. Hilda Hung, and Trayton Homes working with us to get this resolved. Originally, there was a third of an acre that's they had two homes on it, and when we brought it to their attention, that third of the acre is going to be deeded to the cemetery by the McClure estate. And the new plat that Kevin Moore's brought to your attention that shows that's the driveway going into the right at that sharp angle. And I just want to clarify for the record that the boundary of 10 feet from the existing boundary, the 35 feet is being added to that. And does that mean that fence, the buffer fence, is going to be right on the 45-foot line? That's what I want to be, for the record, make sure of, because, we appreciate Trayton Homes working with the cemetery on that. Now let's get back to my part of the property, back in the back corner. I have to wear two hats here, but back here next to Bob Bruce's property, originally it had the retention pond in that corner, and if you look up in that corner right there, the reason that's all dead looking, this is in the wintertime, those are old hickory and oak trees. It's back in that corner they're going to put a retention pond in. So it's refreshing that an engineer finally come out there, and after we had the hearing 2 weeks ago and with Trayton Homes, they took a second look at it, and they moved the retention pond into a natural area where Mother Nature has been running water for who knows how long, but help save that corner, and it's a lot more acceptable to my neighbors in the back at Witt Station Run. And also our concerns about the entrance was met, moving the entrance subdivision because it's in a dangerous area where they originally had it. But I appreciate Trayton Homes, Kevin Moore, everybody working with us on it to make it suitable for the neighborhood. But there's one little tiny issue still left. You had a DOT staff mention that there was 4,000 trips on that road. I never saw a traffic study. Don't know when it was taken. Was it taken when school was out, when college was out? That road is used for a cutoff of Mars Hill Road over down Mars Hill Church Road to Jim Owens Road at the four-way stop where the school's at, going over to 41 Highway. That is a cut-through road now. That road has not had any improvements on it, I know of, the 36 years I've been living there. And we're about to put another 180, 200 more cars on it. The left turn lane will help tremendously on keeping that, but we still got that flow of traffic coming through there. The 35-mile-an-hour speed limit's a joke. Been several accidents there, and Mr. Smith's going to get up to speak. There was 4 people that's been killed right there in front of his house where the subdivision's at because that road is so dangerous. I appreciate everybody working with the community and especially the cemetery.
Thank you, Mr. Richards. Any other speakers, please?
My name is Terry Smith. I live at 2688 Mars Hill Church Road, which is adjacent to the property on the southwest corner, right straight across from Giles Road. That's it right there. My property is, the land lots that is adjoining my property is 74 through 77. And our bedroom on our house is 90 foot from the property line. And what I'm asking for is about the same type of buffer they have over at the cemetery, which would be about a 35-foot buffer, that the homeowners there could not put a fence up into that 35-foot buffer to keep dogs that bark. That seems to be where the homeowner can't control the animal, especially on a 2-story home where their bedroom would be in the front and they couldn't hear it. And if the dog got to barking at the moon all night, it'd be barking in my bedroom. And I'd like to, that's what I would like to see done, would be just those land lots there, or the 74 through 77, that the fence that they would put up would be 35 foot off the property line to give me just a little bit of protection there. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Is there any other opposition?
Morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. You haven't seen me here a while, but I remember back in the boom when all these promises and pretty pictures of houses went up. And again, the builder is a great builder, but does he know the double dip recession's coming? And about the time they clear cut this area and you leave the little scraggly buffers around it, put in your infrastructure, we'll end up with a pipe field possibly. I mean, that is the reality of today's economy. I mean, if Bernanke studies the Depression and does everything to recreate the Depression, within 2 years is when this thing will happen. It could be any time from now, within 2 years. And all these guys that have money out here, Mr. Trayton evidently didn't get caught last time, and I'm talking to him, I don't know him, but you need to proceed with caution. I mean, some developers are really good, but if he's building the houses, lots of these guys got caught last time. And for the homeowner's sake, these buffers, especially when it's R30, you should leave much more of the existing trees in the backyard and put the fence inside that line. And basically, if the runoff's like they say, there's your natural way to contain it. I mean, it really matters. I mean, to preserve these green things on lands with slope. And also, then later, if something hiccup happens and you have a pipe field, and if it, like in that previous one, what was senior zoned, and then the bank owns it, and then you change it from senior to something else because you don't want a pipe field, and you got to do something. It's destroyed already with the trees. You need to proceed with caution, because that's why I'm here. I did this all through 2005, 6, told you the bubble's coming, you never listened. I'm at least right about that, and I'm right about this. So I hope you proceed with caution. Protect the homeowners around it, and thank you very much. And
Thank you for your
Mr. Creighton,
economic
protect
update.
yourself.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Close the public hearing. Back to Commissioner Gorham, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Cornelius, could you put the site plan back up on the board, please? Thank you. And while you're doing that, I want to thank the community, the cemetery preservation group, the developer, and Kevin for working together on this project. It just makes our lives as commissioners a lot easier if you can work a lot of the kinks out prior to the hearing, and there has been a lot of work on this project. It's been a long time since District 1 has had a request for a subdivision on a green on an undeveloped piece of land here. So I know for some it's a shock to the system, and it will be a shock to the system when those graders come in and bulldozers and change the actual view of this area. But looking at this area, and I looked for any excuse I could to keep it R30, and unfortunate for me, as you know, I like to maintain the area as pristine as I can. There have been a lot of R20s that have been zoned and built in this area. This R20 is coming in, I believe, at a unit per acre at 1.55, which is well below an R20. And looking at some of the existing subdivisions, especially on this side of Mars Hill Church Road, we have Whitney Station that's in at 1.73 units per acre, which is located right to the north. We have Kingsgate to the south, which is at 1.66 units per acre. We have West Chimney Manor, which is across Ackworth due west to the back portion of this, that is at 1.78. So we're coming in at an R20 that I think is a reasonable request. And also one of the things that I look at is whether or not this request for this development will complement the existing nature of the area. And this side of Mars Hill Church, it most certainly, it does that. I know there were outstanding issues initially regarding the cemetery, and I believe we have that covered to the likes of the Cemetery Preservation Committee. Ms. Helga Hong, thank you so much for all that you do. There were concerns about the location of the detention pond, and that has been moved, and I think in a much better location. Concerns, and there'll always be concerns about traffic. As we grow, people are going to look for the past of least resistance and use streets as cut-throughs, and unfortunately that just happens with the growth of Cobb County. But I think that adding that left turn lane, decel lane, to turn into the subdivision in conjunction with the right-hand decel lane is going to be phenomenal. That's going to allow for a great free flow of traffic in that area and also add to the safety. Mr. Braden, can you come forward, please? And what I'd like you to do is to just share a little bit about how we're handling the runoff. I know there's a creek or two there, but also share what the natural progression is as we go through site plan review, how we look at that situation. Because I know that I believe it was one of the gentlemen that came up had a concern about the runoff from the construction site.
Right. Again, Dave Braden with the Stormwater Management Division, and I'll be speaking for our erosion control division, which is actually part of community development. But When the project comes through plan review, they do have to meet all of the stormwater management requirements, which are a requirement of being part of the Metro District, but they provide both water quality, channel protection, and stormwater detention in those ponds. Those ponds are built at the beginning of the development. There is also different phases as you have seen when they go up, but as the roads go in and the lands get cleared, there are different phases of erosion control as well. So there are measures that are put in place to protect those streams from sediment erosion leaving the site. And site inspections out there on a daily and weekly basis to ensure that that is indeed the fact. Not that they don't always fail, but they can catch it and get them to address it on that as soon as possible.
Okay. Thank you.
I did want to mention about the moving the pond. It is
Yes.
a much better location. It also provides easier access for maintenance to that pond, which is a good thing as well. So
Wonderful, and I
it's
know
good.
that we're preserving some hardwoods out
Right.
there too that initially we were not. Kevin, thank you, Dave. Kevin, could you come to the podium, please? I know that Mr. Smith had some concerns regarding lots 74 or 74 through 77.
Yes.
And I'm having difficulty, I think, on what I'm seeing here, where that might be. Could you just? Oh, it's up, okay.
Certainly. Let's see, this is Mr. Smith's property
Okay.
here. And the lots he is referencing are these 4 lots right here.
Correct. And being that these are lots that the home buyer will own, we cannot dictate the placement of their fences to say to add a buffer. This is a much different subdivision than the conservation subdivision, where when we were planning that, we actually dictated a buffer as part of the open space for part of that plan. Is that correct?
That is correct. That was part of an open space community or conservation subdivision. There's a lot of trade-offs that occur as it relates to site planning and locations of fences and buffers and things like that.
Correct.
You're
So,
correct.
so our hands are somewhat tied on this approach, so.
They are in this instance, yes.
Okay. Thank you for that. Mr. Trayton, I would just encourage you to save as much green as you can, as much of, specimen trees out there and whatever to assist us in making this the most, pleasing that we can. With that being said, Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Please do.
Okay, like to make a motion to approve Z4, request rezoning from R30 to R20, to include the letter of stipulations dated 2/13/2013, to include the Planning Commission's comments and recommendations, and all staff comments and recommendations.
So the only exception, the Planning Commission references is the February 5 letter. You're clearly replacing that with February 13th.
Replacing that with the letter
February
dated
13th.
February 13th, so that will supersede all previous stipulation letters.
Just for clarity for the community, do you want to comment to the fence as it relates around the cemetery as to where that will be?
I'm going to allow Mr. Moore to comment on the fence around the cemetery.
Sure. Yes, that's part of Ms. Hong's and the Cemetery Preservation Commission comments and recommendations to fence the cemetery on the buffer line, and we are in agreement with that. So yes, that would, if that needs to be added as a specific stipulation, we're happy to do that.
Is it 35? Right now, the cemetery is 35. Are you adding the 10 feet to it?
Yes, that's part of our stipulations is that we have, RS Webb came out and then Gaskins came out on top of that as a survey company to mark where the existing cemetery property line is. Then we are moving that line, cemetery boundary line, 10 to 15 feet depending on the location, and then adding 35 feet as a buffer. So we get that 45 to 50 foot that.
Yeah, I realize it's in, not only in the planning commission notes, but in your stipulation letter, but because someone brought it up, I thought we'd just bring it full circle. Not that anybody from the press is here to report on that, but.
But yes.
We have a motion
We need a second.
We have a second by Commissioner Ott. Are there any other comments from the board? Other question? Motion carries 5-0. We appreciate everyone's time and effort in Z4. Next case, please.
Yes, sir. Rezoning case Z5, Lily Estates LLC. Request rezoning from R20 to R15 for the purpose of single-family residential in land lot 967 of the 16th District. The property is located on the south side of Robinson Road, south of Roswell Road. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z5? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Mr. Moore.
I'm happy to present this case. I believe it was just Ms. Steiner that stood up to speak. Is that right at this point? And I'm actually reserving some of my time so that she could speak in favor or in support on behalf of the East Cobb Civic Association. So given where we are with this, I'll make this a brief presentation since at this point there is no further opposition. This is a rezoning request on behalf of Lily Estates, which is now the owner and applicant of this property located on Robinson Road. It's a 4.05 acre tract being proposed for rezoning from its existing R20 to the R15 category for a total of 8 homes. This proposal likewise does not contain requests for variances as to lot size or setbacks. In addition, it also does not maximize. You can actually, under R15, obtain 9 homes or 9 lots at this location, and what is being proposed is a maximum of 8 homes at this location. What's being shown on your screen is the site plan. I'm going to turn to that just to point out a few key things that we've worked with East Cobb Civic Association as well as adjoining owners and subdivisions, primarily Indian Hills. So that you can see what's been done by this applicant as far as the stipulation letter, which the operative one is dated January 31, 2013. And I realize that this site plan may not be quite as easy to read, but we have the topo lines are on there because there was a lot of attention placed on stormwater control and management and how that would be handled in this proposal. This is Robinson Road here, and a small infill development of 8 homes. And in fact, one of our early meetings with representatives of Indian Hills, which this is Indian Hills wrapping around to the rear of the property, and the East Cobb Civic Association included Mr. Dave Braden of Cobb Stormwater so that he could help us make sure that we were addressing the concerns from a stormwater perspective. This is the proposed location of the detention pond. There is a Cobb County drainage easement to the rear along this path right here that connects then down to a street in Indian Hills. And it is a dedicated Cobb County drainage easement. The detention pond will tie into that drainage easement. But these homes in particular here are on the downhill side. So what we wanted to make sure of is that we were appropriately handling detention and stormwater control. And we've agreed with stormwater comments as it relates to making sure that when we tie into this existing drainage channel, that improvements are made as needed or necessary to handle and adequately handle stormwater so that these homes are indeed protected. And in fact, once we do that, the stormwater management as it relates to specifically to these 2 lots actually will improve because of the improvements we'll make to the downstream channel. In addition, we have agreed with East Cobb Civic Association to a variety of stipulations as it relates to the homes and styling and architectural styles of the homes. In addition, we have worked with DOT on some very specific comments as it relates to the frontage and the entrance location, and those are included in our stipulation letter, and we were very pleased with our ability to work with DOT and thank Cobb DOT for their ability to work with us so that we can achieve what's necessary for the entrance location, as well as dedication of any necessary right-of-way. The rest and remainder of the stipulations that are in our stipulation letter that we've worked with East Cobb Civic Association have been worked very well, and we appreciate their help and assistance and cooperation as we went through these issues. The only change, and it's very, very minor, but I did want to note it so that when we get to plan review, we don't cause an issue. But stipulation number 7, which we have agreed to the planting of at least 4 new trees for each residential lot, one of which must be a minimum 4-inch caliper tree. There was some concern about, we had in the stipulation letter said that the 4-inch caliper tree would be placed in the front yard of the lot. There's a couple of lots in particular, the ones that are adjacent to Indian Hills, where it might be more advantageous for us to place that larger tree in the rear yard as additional screening for Indian Hills. We discussed that, and I think that's very agreeable. It's just a matter of flexibility of where those trees are located. Right. We would just say that we agree to the planting of at least 4 trees on each residential lot, one of which will be a minimum 4-inch caliber hardwood tree, and just delete planted in the front yard, so that the flexibility is allowed in working with the Cobb Arborist during plan review to note where those trees will be going and maximize the larger trees where necessary for adjacent owners. And with that, I'm going to reserve the rest of my time for Ms. Steiner. And certainly I'm here. The representative of the applicant, Abdul Amir, is here as well, and we can answer any questions that you might have and respectfully request your approval of this rezoning request. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I am Trish Steiner with East Cobb Civic Association. For the record, we are not opposed to this rezoning. We have met several times with Mr. Kevin Moore and the applicant. It has truly been a pleasure to work with the applicant, Mr. Amir and Mr. Moore. Mr. Amir has graciously agreed to all of our requests for this proposed R15 subdivision. We want to thank Mr. Amir very much for working with us. We agree to all the additional steps that have changed the trees. There's no problem. And we wish Mr. Amir success developing this property, and we look forward to working with him in the future. It has truly been a wonderful process. Everyone is very, very happy. And thank you. Please vote to accept this. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish. You have 3 minutes left, Mr. Moore. Are you completed?
Yes.
Thank you.
I would like to say yes. The presentation on behalf of the applicant is.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Opposition, if you would state your name and stick to the purpose of the zoning application.
My name is Craig Harfoot, Mr. Chairman, and I'm not speaking for or against. What I'm trying to establish here
I know, but that's my point.
It's the trees, okay? Don't interrupt me, please. It's
Sir,
a matter of courtesy.
Listen, you stick to the application.
Right.
And the issues associated with it.
The trees in the backyard, okay? They should go in first. They should be growing before these things even begin to come out of the ground. That is our biggest problem in this county, is that these are all afterthoughts, and if these things do not come to completion, that's where all the last problems came from.
Okay, we have a county arborist that works with the developer through this entire process to make sure well-trained Carver County arborist.
But the trees you guys plant, it's good to have fast growth, but you need slow growth beside it, because these things stage out and die.
Thank you. What's your preference as it relates to this zoning case?
I'm just saying that your buffers are always fall short in the thing. And whenever you're going from zoning from a 30 to a 20 or a 20 to a 15, you have leeway to
what's your preference as it relates to this particular zoning? Are you for or against this zoning?
I'm saying you need to put the trees in first.
Heard that. Are you for or against this zoning?
I have no other comment
than
that you're not protecting the surrounding homeowners by not putting these stipulations in.
Heard that. Thank you. Any other opposition? Seeing and hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Commissioner Ott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too would like to thank Mr. Amir, Kevin, East Cobb Civic Association, and DOT. Actually, DOT a lot, because they spent a lot of time. Everybody kind of sat down, worked out some issues and details. It's not very often that East Cobb comes up and says they like it, so I appreciate that. Everybody did a great job. Thank you very much. I don't know if the comments ready to make a motion, unless somebody has comments.
Please proceed.
Okay. Make a motion to approve Z5.
Second.
Okay, let him make a motion.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Let him make a motion, and then we'll get a second, and then we'll open it up for discussion, okay?
From the R20 to R15 zoning category, subject to the following stipulations. Some of these are just going to be a repeat of the planning commission, just to make sure that they're in, because the letter was not changed. The revised site plan received by zoning division on January 16th, 2013. District commissioner may approve minor modifications with the following exceptions. I'm going to read them, but I'm going to give the clerk a copy, and Mr. Moore has agreed to this. Minor modifications be approved by the district commissioner except for those that increase the density of a residential property or the overall square footage of a non-residential project. Number 2, reduce the size of an approved buffer adjacent to an adjacent property that is zoned in a more restrictive residential zoning district. Number 3, relocate a structure closer to the property line of an adjacent property that is zoned in a more restrictive residential zoning district. And number 4, increase the height of a building that is adjacent to a property that is zoned in more restrictive residential zoning district. Just kind of a note, and this is in working with Mr. Hosak and some of the homeowner groups. That's where this came from. That's actually from Rob. Okay, number 3, stipulation, letter of agreeable stipulations from Kevin Moore dated January 31st, 2013 with the following changes. Number 5, the monument sign to be in full compliance with the sign ordinance. Number 8, fencing to be dark green or black vinyl coated and a height of at least 4 feet. Landscaping to be approved by the county arborist. And then number 7, the change that Kevin put in there about removing the location for the tree. Number 9, delete the last sentence where it starts, if such wall. Number 12, and Jane, I'll probably have you come up just to kind of confirm this. Number 12, entrance to be located as shown, and I'm going to call it Exhibit C. It's not listed in your package as C, but the page before it is A, the page before it is B. In the letter dated January 30th, 2013 from A&R Engineering. Are you familiar? Is that the preferred location, or do you want the one that's on the site plan? Because, in our meeting, the one in the letter is the one that kind of is a little bit of an angle versus the 90 from the site plan.
I'll bring the folder up with me. I want the one that shows the 114 feet.
You want the one that gave you the most distance, right?
Yes, sir.
Well, that's the one in, I think
Yes,
that's.
the one in the letter.
Right, okay.
Yes,
And like I said, I'm gonna reference that as Exhibit C, so if you just wanna write on your pages. But it's the letter from A&R Engineering. And that's, in working with DOT, so you're comfortable with that, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. And then add a number 15, we're good. This is from the Planning Commission, entry drive and cul-de-sac to be installed within 12 months of today, February 19th, or reverts back to the original zoning. And then add a number 16, the current house on the property be boarded up within 60 days and demolished within 90 days from today. And then all the fire department comments and recommendations, revised stormwater comments and recommendations, we got a revised.
Correct.
Water and sewer comments and recommendations, and then the revised DOT comments with the exception of the drive location. And that's why I put.
Okay, the one thing you did not read, if you go back to item number 8, it said add the fencing to be dark green or concrete black vinyl coated in a height of at least 4 feet. If a concrete structure required, the outside must be faced with stone or brick. Is that part of that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we have a proper motion. Is there a second?
Well, then the last thing is, like I said, the revised DOT comments and recommendations with the exception of the drive location.
Correct.
Which we just talked about.
Correct.
And then the standard owner and developer.
Correct. Donation right away. We have a proper motion. Is there a second?
Yes, a proper second.
Proper second. Are there any comments from the board? Call the question. Motion carries 5-0. Mr. Moore, did you have something to add?
I was just gonna, as a point of clarification, I don't like to certainly question any kind of approval, especially when it's been made. There is an existing tenant in that house that's on the property. As far as demolishing the house within that time frame,
Okay.
We know why we want to do that. We would say 120 days to make sure we have.
You want to do it 60 days from the tenant moving out?
That'd even be better, so that.
Okay.
And just want to point that out, because it's not a vacant home like sometimes we want.
Since we haven't gone on, I
We
can't
haven't
amend, right?
moved on, correct.
Sorry, so I'd like to amend the motion, and that would be item number, let me find it.
16.
16, to say 60 days from the tenant moving out.
Yes.
Demolished in 90 days.
That works very well. Thank you for that consideration.
Are you agreeable to that, Commissioner Cupid?
And I apologize, I thought they were already out.
No, so that's
Okay.
quite all right. Thank you.
We're boarding up people in their in the district. We have a
So we
motion.
keep them
and
in District 2?
Proper second.
Yes, second.
Any other comments? Call the question.
Thank you.
It carries 5-0. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
To everyone involved. Appreciate that. Let's move to Z6, please.
Yes, sir. Rezoning case at Z6, Brooks Chadwick Capital LLC. Request rezoning from R20 and RM12 to RM8 for the purpose of a residential subdivision in land lot 84 of the First District. The property is located on the east side of Johnson Ferry Road, north of River Hill Road. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z6? Let the record show there are 4 people here in opposition. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is John Moore, and I'm here representing the applicant, Brooks Chadwick Capital, with regard to this rezoning on Johnson Ferry Road. I'd like to thank Jill Flam and Trish Steiner with ECCA. We worked, I think we had 3 total meetings and many conversations about this proposed rezoning. And Kim Swanson, who scheduled a meeting with River Hill subdivision and the subdivisions adjacent to us, which were well attended, had some 100 people there. And Mr. Todd Thrasher is here on behalf of Brooks Chadwick to answer any questions that you may have that I can't answer. This is a 32-acre tract currently zoned in 2 categories. If you look at the site plan, if you stand on Johnson Ferry Road looking at the property, the back, a strip across the back 10 acres is zoned RM12 with no stipulations or conditions, which means you could build apartments there at 12 units an acre or 120 units. The balance of the property, 20 acres, is zoned R20. So under current zoning, you could build 155, 156 units. We're proposing a total of 125 units, which is a minimum of 30 less than what you could build as currently zoned. We filed a request for RM8 zoning. There was some issue about that, and the reason is that RA5 is limited to a maximum of 20 acres. This more fits RA5 than it does RM8, but we had to apply for a zoning category which is allowed under your zoning ordinance. The Planning Commission did delete this request from RM8 to RA5, and the applicant certainly has no objection to that. The land use plan shows this as medium density residential. Our total density is 3.9 units per acre, which is well below the 5 units an acre limit for medium density residential and RA5. I'd like to point out from the site plan what we propose to do here. This is Johnson Ferry Road. This is Park Air Shopping Center on this side. This is River Hill subdivision on this side, and these are the condominiums, the villas at Park Air, and the meadows behind us that are zoned RM12. And what we did was we basically put in 3 type products for this subdivision, and an amenity package. Since we had 125 units, we haven't seen many amenity packages due to the fact we haven't had any large subdivisions done, but we have one here. This is River Hill subdivision, as I mentioned, and what we did, if you'll notice, is each lot line of our proposed lots line up exactly with the lot lines of the existing lots in River Hill. Also, these are the largest lots in the subdivision, these and these. And that was intentional as well. They range up to 25,000 square feet. There's one smaller 13,000 square foot one, but that's the same as the one behind us. The rest of them are 18, 19, as I said, up to 25,000. As you move from right to left towards Park Air Mall, these are the medium range. These homes will be in the 600s to 850 and greater. The mid-range homes will be in the 4s to the 6s. And then we have 40 townhome units that will be in the 3s to the 5s. And this townhome unit is a special unit in the sense that it's 28 feet wide, which is a very wide townhome unit. Most are 22, 24 feet wide. Minimum square footage is 2,500 square feet. This has the architecture is three-sided architecture, and any basement lot will have a water table, a minimum of 36 inches off the ground of something other than hardy plank. Any unit, whether it's a townhome or a residential unit that has any side facing Johnson Ferry, will not be all hardy plank, but will have other building structures as a part of that. This is the amenity package located here. It has a 6-lane swimming pool, 2 tennis courts, and a very nice cabana. Parking for that. You see an island here. We created a special bus pickup zone for children that live in the subdivision, and they will gather here, and the bus will come in, go around, and come this way and pick them up. There's a park area inside here as well, and all members of the subdivision will belong to the amenity package. It's a mandatory homeowners association, which includes both. Since all will be using the amenity package, all belong and are part of that. While I'm here, I'm going to cover the landscape plan, which was much talked about. This is Johnson Ferry Road again. This is the entrance. This is the portion of the development from the entrance back towards Park Air Mall. There's a wall. This begins here and comes this way, and then landscaping all along the front and the back, but which is unusual in a sense. Most of the time you see the brick walls and no landscaping. This has extensive landscaping, and I'll show you there's a board here that specifies every bush, tree, how many, what size it is, and so forth along the entire frontage. The wall stops at this location right here, and this picks up at the end of this. You couldn't get it all on one board, but you see the end of the wall here again. Going from this point to Park Air, this wall will stop and we'll have a berm, a landscape berm. And the idea here was has such long road frontage is to break up the frontage so you don't see just a wall. You see a combination of plantings. This is the landscape plan going from the entrance to the right along Johnson Ferry to River Hill subdivision. You will see the wall again coming and curving around the entrance and going to this point, at which point it will pick up with a berm. Very heavy landscaping along that entire property. This is the board showing detail, and this has been submitted to your staff, detailed landscaping showing each plant, tree, how many of them, and what size they are. I want to go back to the site plan for just one moment. Along River Hill, we did a couple of things. One, we've already gone over, we matched their property lines, and we made the lots bigger here. Additionally, we created a 25-foot buffer area, and we will go with the arborist to walk that buffer and take out any dead or dying trees. And then in our stipulation letter, which is dated, the last one's dated February the 13th, we've agreed that we will replace those dead or dying trees that are asked to be taken out by the arborist with additional tree planting. In addition to that, we're going to go back after that's done and enhance that buffer along its entirety with River Hill. One issue that came up, and this is very different, we increased the rear setback on these lots to 35 feet and reduced the front to 20 to move these houses forward. And what we also agreed to do in a stipulation letter, which is the unusual part, is we agreed that there would be no impervious surface area within that 35 feet. In other words, under your ordinance, you can, depending on what you're doing and whether it's side or rear or what, you can build a swimming pool, a deck, a outdoor kitchen, a outdoor seating area with a fireplace, up to within 5 to 10 feet of your next door neighbor. In this case, none of that will be done, which is a very important part of this entire subdivision and in dealing with the River Hill homeowners. Much work went in also. We had proposed in our original stipulation letter that at paragraph 18D on page 5, we had proposed to contribute $150,000 toward the payment for a traffic signal and related components at our entrance at Johnson Ferry Road. We felt that with the traffic in that area and what the daycare center across the street, the Dunkin' Donuts, where everybody's making U-turns at our entrance, that a traffic light would be appropriate. The DOT had their recommendation originally to be that there would be a warrant study which is done to determine whether a traffic signal is necessary or allowable. That would be done at completion of the development. In continuing negotiations with DOT and the staff, we agreed to what has now been put in front of you as our additional stipulation letter dated February the 18th. And all that does is change that paragraph 18D as a dog. We continue to agree that we will pay up to $150,000 of the cost. But this allows, the change here is it allows a warrant study to be done at any point, either by Cobb DOT or by the applicant, at any point during the development and build-out phase, rather than waiting to the end of the development. And if that should occur, then they would give us notice that it meets the warrant study. They would have a right to review ours. And if it meets that, they can request, which is a nice way of putting it, that we pay $150,000. Obviously, if they don't, they can stop our building permits or our COs or both to get us to put it up. So I don't think there's any question with that. And we've agreed to this. However, just so we can move on with our lives as far as the builder in this case, if it hasn't occurred within 24 months after today, then the requirement to put up the $150,000 is gone. We will know within that time frame. We hope to be built out and gone within 2 years. Since this is the Walton School District, it should move very rapidly. So within that time frame, we will continue to put up the $150,000, and after that, we will not. We're ready to answer any questions. I apologize for going over, but this latest change was a major one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. For the record, is there any opposition? Have you sworn them in? Please go forward.
Good morning, Commissioners. Please forgive me for my voice. My name is Jill Flam, and I'm actually up here wearing 3 different hats. I'm president of East Cobb Civic Association. I'm also co-case manager for this case C6, and I live in the area. First off, I'd like to say I'm up here not in opposition to the proposed development. It has been a pleasure to work with the applicant as well as his attorney, and we welcome this residential development to our area. And if it's any indication from the number of phone calls I've been receiving from realtors who want to sell the houses proposed in this area, as well as my neighbors who would like to downsize and move into this area, we're hoping that it will sell out very quickly. I find myself in a very different position that I'm addressing our recommendations to DOT staff concerning their request to have a traffic warrant done after build-out. And I'd kind of like to acquaint you with this area. There right now is about 40,000 cars that travel up and down Johnson Ferry daily. And from a person who does use Johnson Ferry, I have no doubt to this number. However, this particular median break is one of my and my neighbors' favorite places to make a U-turn. We frequent the businesses on the west side of Johnson Ferry for gas services, and yes, Dunkin' Donuts for that morning cup of coffee. In addition, there is a daycare center and office park directly across from this median break, where many of our neighbors drop off and pick up their children on the way to and from work. These people are making their left turns during peak traffic hours across Johnson Ferry, along with us U-turners. We will now be adding into this traffic mix at the median break large construction trucks and car traffic from workers on the construction site for at least 2 years before the build-out is complete. While the build-out is going on, we'll also be adding residents from the subdivision that will be attempting to make left turns out of their subdivision onto Johnson Ferry. And finally, when build-out is complete, we're looking at possibly 250 or more other cars attempting to make left turns onto Johnson Ferry. Without a traffic light, this is a very dangerous traffic situation from the very beginning. Hampton Farms to the south of the subdivision has a light at their entrance, and they do not even have traffic coming from the west onto Johnson Ferry. The traffic light was put in because a mother was killed trying to make a left turn from Hampton Farms Drive onto Johnson Ferry after dropping off her children from school. The traffic and the speed have only increased on Johnson Ferry since that time. And now I'd like to go back and talk about a case that we heard earlier this year. In the case of Z43 in District 3 of last year, a signal study was done prior to zoning to see if a traffic light was warranted. What we are asking is that a study be done at this median break by DOT within the next 90 days to determine if a traffic signal is warranted, and if so, the light be installed as soon as possible. If not, that a study be done again prior to the completion, or 24 months or the completion of build-out, to see if any of these conditions have changed. Bottom line, we recommend our approval for Z6, and we recommend the following modifications to when the traffic study be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Flynn. Next speaker, please.
I have these, I don't know how to do that one. Yeah. Yeah, I'll just kind of have to go on. I'm sorry for that. Good morning, my name is Sue Jensen. I am representing the Board of Directors for the Villas Condominium Association Incorporated, the Villas at Park Air. I'm also representing the owners of 150 units there. I brought a few illustrations or visuals, and I'm sorry if they're in duplicate. I just only wanted to show the location of our particular condominium development in relationship to the new development. And this is highlighted over here in yellow. So you can see it's a portion of that border. And then if we could go to the next one. And again, it's just here. This is where we are. And then
CP, Ms. CP, make sure she uses the mic, please.
I'm sorry?
Ms. Jensen, we need you to use the mic when you're
I'm
step
sorry.
away from the
It was
podium.
only, this was shown previously in another, but that was just to show the density of the woods there. We have, and then I also have just some photographs of the Villas property that's on the border there. The second photograph there is showing our view onto the new development, and there is nothing there that blocks that. For the last, or the viewpoint that I've been asked to present is as follows. For the past 39 years, we have always enjoyed the view of the woods and the quiet. The new development will forever change the view and the quiet. It is our wish that there be no development there at all. But if there is, then we request a privacy fence for the courtesy of our residents. We request that the Board of Commissioners so stipulates that the developer installs a solid wood 8-foot privacy fence along the villa's west property line, which is the development's east side, from the northern edge to the southern edge, and to install the fence prior to the start of construction. Please also so stipulate that thereafter and into the future, that the privacy fence will be maintained by the new development's homeowners association. If the developer is willing to install the privacy fence we have asked for, we will not oppose the zoning request. And that concludes my request.
Thank you, Ms.
Is
Jensen.
there anything further?
No, I think we got it. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Next speaker, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Larry Savage. I live in the area. My concern has to do with the traffic on Johnson Ferry Road. It's already been mentioned that the current traffic count is about 41,000 vehicle trips per day. I have really strongly opposed the addition of another traffic signal on Johnson Ferry Road. There are a number of ways to mitigate the requirements for the people to go in and out of this subdivision, both during construction and during permanent residency. But 41,000 vehicle trips per day certainly ought to be a higher priority than 150 new homeowners who would be slightly inconvenienced if they don't have a traffic light. If there were not already a cut through in the median, would you give them one? I don't think you would. Just by chance that there's a cut through there. If you go a couple of blocks north, Cobb DOT is about to start a project to put a fixed median in Lower Roswell Road in a commercial area to stop the left turn traffic. And here we are about to create a new traffic signal intersection to permit left turn traffic. There are a lot of places where people have to make U-turns to get back to their destination, including a lot of subdivisions on Johnson Ferry Road. Some have a median cut through and no light. Some have neither a cut through nor a light, and they still get home every day. We should be looking for an opportunity to take advantage of U-turns. We can make U-turns under a signal intersection at Powers Road, and we can make U-turns at a signal-controlled intersection at the entrance to the Park Air Shopping Center. If you're going to make any changes at all, I would try to enhance the U-turn capability at those locations and perhaps even close the opening in the median on Johnson Ferry Road that exists now. Again, I think the highest priority is for 41,000 vehicles per day, not for the very small number of people who currently use that cut-through or might use it in the future. And I especially want to draw attention to the applicant's desire to fund and do their own study on the need for the light. I heard the DOT representation the other day to the Planning Commission, and the DOT was very adamant that they don't do speculative traffic lights or speculative studies. You can't study the conditions after this thing is built out before it's built out, and that's what the applicant proposes to do. I won't speak for DOT except to comment on what they had to say in the Planning Commission meeting, but I would strongly urge you to not allow another traffic light unless it is just absolutely clear that there's no other alternative for it. My other point is not going to be made because I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Savage. Appreciate your thoughts. Is there anyone else wishing to speak very quickly, specific to this? Your name, please.
My name is Craig Harfoot, and I agree thoroughly and completely with Mr. Savage's analysis. This morning as I came here, and this is just to show how bad it is, on Lower Roswell, where the McDonald's is on the north side of the road, traffic's all stopped, so we didn't block people trying to come out of McDonald's. Well, instead of turning right into the immediate right turn lane, they're trying to come across 2 lanes and get into the 3rd turn lane going
Okay,
left.
McDonald's has got nothing to do with the zoning.
It has everything to do
No,
with this.
would you
Now,
please be specific
please
to the
don't
zoning?
interrupt, sir.
Please be specific to the zoning. Are you for or against the zoning, and why?
I'm against this zoning because first you're going from a R20 designation behind River Hill and going to a higher density. You don't leave a buffer. You don't leave a buffer for the woman that spoke earlier. There's no fence, there's no trees, there's nothing. And these things, if you're going to higher densities, and it impacts traffic, and it impacts the quality of life of the surrounding homeowners, and you're not protecting them with the buffers that are built before you even build the first house, you're not doing anything because we're going into this possibility of the second recession.
Okay.
The double dip. Now,
The
here's the
opposition,
thing.
the opposition's time's expired. Thank you. Thank you.
You guys aren't thinking ahead. You're gonna
Thank
get
you.
caught.
By the way, it's a decrease of units versus the allowed, currently allowed. Mr. Ott, or the Commissioner Ott, the public hearing is now closed. It's back to you, or to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll start off with that. Some of my comments. In actuality, the requested zoning is a decrease in density from what's currently allowed on the property. In addition, it's going from allowing apartments, rental property to all for sale with only the maximum of 10% leased. So I think that's an improvement also. First off, I'd like to thank the applicant, Mr. Moore, East Cobb Civic Association, and DOT, once again. A lot of time was spent, as you can see, with the site plan, the landscape plan, a whole bunch of stuff. Unfortunately, I think that you guys got left out of the discussion, so we'll try to take care of that. So, the site, do we have the land use designations? Show where the MDR and the LDR are? Well, before you go off on this, okay, that's fine. What you can see here on the, right here on this photo, or this picture, is the land use designation with the medium density residential on the north side of the property and the low density residential on the south. And if you think back to the site plan that's being proposed, the least intense lots, or the largest properties, are on the south. The most intense are up in the north, right across from the GC and the CRC. Now if we can go back to the zoning map. And once again, the proposed site plan is consistent with the zoning map. Yes, you have the RM12 on the right, but once again, the least dense is down on the south part of the property. The commercial begins on Johnson Ferry, pretty much right across the street from where the townhomes are being proposed. And they kind of go up along Park Air. So I think it's a tremendous effort by everyone involved in trying to take and put a product that is definitely desired in the area. When the townhomes went up on Powers Ferry Road in Wildwood, a lot of folks from East Cobb moved over there because they wanted to downsize. And those folks familiar with the area know that there really is not this type of townhome product or smaller lot product for folks to downsize as the kids move on in the Walton district. So I think that there's definitely a need for this. Ms. Strickland, could you come up, please? And I know we didn't talk about you coming up and talking about this, so I won't have you mention all 8 items, but could you talk a little bit about what exactly a warrant study is and give the folks just a little bit of an idea of some of the things that you look at?
Sure. My name is Jane Strickland with Cobb DOT, and the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is put out by FHWA, has 9 warrants for a signal. And so what we would require is that the conditions meet one of those warrants in order for us to evaluate the signal.
And one of the warrants is fatal accidents, which obviously we don't want to get to that point.
Yes, sir.
We don't want, it was mentioned about River Hill or Hampton Farms. One of the things is that you and other DOT staff members do is we try to be proactive and stay ahead of situations like that. So when we talk about, initially there was a discussion about waiting until it was built out. If one of these 9 warrants is already in place, then the study is going to show that and the need for the light. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Because one of the main things that DOT does is look out for safety.
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
yes, in our
All right.
mission statement.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to make a motion.
Please do.
All right. A lot of the Planning Commission recommendations and conditions were incorporated into Mr. Moore's new letter. One question, Mr. Moore, before we go. Could you come up? I just remembered. You heard the request from the folks on the eastern side of the property.
Yes.
Is the applicant in agreement to put a privacy fence up?
I think we are. This is the first time we heard from them, even though my notice letters went out many months ago.
Well, there's a bunch of folks, so it might have taken some time to get
But
everybody's.
I think it's important to note that we are willing to do that, but they didn't put up a privacy fence, nor did they put a buffer to protect us from their RM12 development. So, but we are. We've done everything, the right way so far, so we're not going to hold that against these folks. But we'd like to be, we're fine with a solid wooden privacy fence, 6 feet in height instead of 8.
Okay, all right.
That's okay.
And you're okay with putting it in as the responsibility of the homeowners association? for
To
maintenance?
maintain it?
Right.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
We'll put it in and they can maintain it.
Sure, okay. All right, then I make a motion to approve Z6 with the deleting from the RM8 to the RA5 zoning category based on the site plan received in the zoning division on December 6, 2012. With District Commissioner, they approve minor modifications with the same exceptions I gave before. Letter of agreeable stipulations from Mr. John Moore dated February 13th, 2013, and also dated February 18th, 2013, with the following modifications. Number 24, under the overall development, add the sentence that says, a record of this requirement shall appear on any and all final plats along River Hill subdivision. And the reason for that is, I think, the no impervious and things like that is great, but as we saw with one of the previous zonings, sometimes the homeowners, after the fact say, oh, I didn't know. So by putting it on the individual plats for the River Hill ones, or the ones along River Hill, we're gonna make sure that those folks know that that's there. Number 5, under the RM8 detached development, change the sentence on line 5 to read, any residence, and then it says, shall be comprised of hard surface or one approved by the district commissioner. And I know where we were going without having the horizontal hardy plank. I just want to make sure that what the view is from Johnson Ferry is appropriate. Number 4, under the RM8 attached development, same as number 5, the one we just read. It basically what we're talking about is all the properties, just the structures that are all in Johnson Ferry. And I'm pretty sure that what we've seen so far should be good. Add number 11 under the RM8 attached. And Mr. Moore, we talked about this, and if you want to come up, we can kind of go through this one together, so that we can kind of show the other commissioners on the. Cornelius, could you put the site plan up on the? This deals with the guest parking.
Oh, yes.
And this kind of addresses the fire department's concerns, because they mentioned that either guest parking will be put in, or you have to list it as a fire lane. So what I'd like to be done, and if we can, Cornelius, you can just zoom in on the green space by the townhomes. What Mr. Moore and I talked about, and if the applicant's okay, what I'd like to have done, and we may, all right, that's good, Cornelius, right there. All right, what I've asked the applicant to look at is, you see there's a rectangular green space area. I've asked them to put in parallel guest parking along the eastern and northern, so in our drawing, it's the top and the left edge of the green space.
What you're talking about here?
Right, right there.
And then-
So basically along the top, so all it's gonna do is it's gonna make it a little bit narrower on those 2 edges. I think we guessed it, what, it would add about 8 or 9 spots?
Yes.
Because in areas like this, guest parking has always been an issue. And plus, with the pool, if they have a swim team or whatever, when you have swim meets, it could become a problem. So what I'm going to add is the applicant will add guest parallel parking spaces along the perimeter, north and east, of the green space depicted in Exhibit A of Mr. Moore's letter. Is the applicant okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. No, it's north and east. You got to take the thing and turn it.
Yeah, north is towards me, right.
I better be able to know north and east, right? What's that?
North and east, right?
I don't think so.
North and east?
North and east. It's the two that we looked at. Okay, and then we'll add, and this will be for the detached section of the RM8, that a privacy fence, a wooden privacy fence will be added along the eastern boundary by the applicant and then maintained by the homeowner association. 6 foot, 6 feet in height. And then granted contemporaneous variance to waive the maximum lot size of 20 acres allowed for RA5 development to 32.02 as shown. Fire department comments and recommendations, water and sewer comments and recommendations, stormwater comments and recommendations, and then DOT comments and recommendations with the exception of the signal comment, and we talked about that, and that's addressed in Mr. Moore's letter from February 18th.
Second. We have a motion, we have a second. Can I ask one question, John, while you're here? I understand the intent on your page 6 to page 10, which deals primarily with the overall.
Which one are we looking at, number 10?
Page 6.
Oh, okay.
Number 23. Clearly the intent, at least that's the intent I got from reading it, is that we want to minimize the construction to hours so as to not disturb the adjacent neighbors and for those residents to move in there. The one thing that strikes me about Sunday, just to keep the distance, and I know it's odd that I'm looking out for the district commissioner's best interest, but I know there's a lot of internal work that can be done on homes that have no outside noise at all. So I'm wondering if the commissioner would, thanks, on D there, we say no work on Sunday unless approved by the district commissioner to keep you from being inundated with as to whether or not an
no
electrician
outside
can go in there. Yeah, exactly. That was to my point.
Why don't we change to no outside work?
No outside work, okay.
Yeah, because I agree with the chairman that, inside stuff, there's no reason to prevent that from happening on Sundays.
Okay.
Yeah, so change 23D to say no outside work on Sundays. They have to be able to get a hold of me, right? Yeah, I think that's a good change. And that's on my request. I'm not sure where that came from.
He's talking about the green space, reducing the size of the green space to put the parallel parking
Okay.
spaces in.
Is there an issue?
No, he just didn't hear the reducing the size. He said we can't know any place to put them, but.
Right.
Yeah, no, you're
There's
going to reduce it.
Right.
And the reason we're only doing parallel is I didn't want to take away the green space. So just trying to address the fire department comments. And I know that in some of the townhome communities we did on Powers Ferry Road, parking has been a huge issue.
Commissioner Gorin.
Yes, Jane Strickland, if you could come forward, please. And this has to do with the warrant, and maybe Mr. Moore should stay up there too. How was 24 months arrived at, and the reason, the rationale for the 24 months?
That was set forth by the developer. That's when they thought they would have total build out.
Okay, I'm just a little concerned about that time frame and the obligation going away. We've been, not that I'm foreseeing this, but we've been through a time here where some subdivisions have taken an extremely long time to be built out. We've seen a change in the developer for that subdivision. Does that mean, and I'm not wishing this on anyone, but if this development were to be sold to someone else, where does the obligation for the traffic signal go? This is no longer the applicant for the project. you have a new builder in, where does the financial responsibility come for a signal if indeed it is warranted and the 24 months or the applicant has changed or the owner of the property? I'm not feeling very secure.
Per the stipulation, it would go back to the county. No.
I think she's saying if the builder changes and the stipulation says the applicant will pay the $150,000, zoning stipulations follow the land, not the person. So whoever steps into the shoes of the applicant has that obligation. In other words, it doesn't change because the owner changes. That obligation moves.
We needed clarification on that, and also the 24 months.
Now, on the 24 months, you have to know where we started. We wanted to put the traffic light up, as did ECCA, in the beginning of this process. So we said we would put $150,000 up and pay it before the land disturbance permit, but they had to do it right now. And that's where all these negotiations came out. So once that changed to where we had to wait for this warrant study, which could drag on for years, our feeling was you couldn't require an applicant to remain responsible for $150,000 in perpetuity. So it had to be, we think we'll be out in 24 months. So we'll either know whether this is going to work or not work with the warrant study, we think within the 2 years. That's where the time frame came from.
We ran a preliminary warrant analysis, and it did not meet warrants. So.
Was your preliminary one based on build-out?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
But we will review any warrant studies that are submitted.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you. You have a motion, you have a motion and a second. Is there any other comments in the board? Call the question. And the motion carries 5-0. Thanks to all for helping make that go smoothly. LUP 1.
Yes, sir. LUP 1, Michael H. O'Rourke, requested a land use permit for the purpose of allowing 2 unrelated adults in land lot 771 of the 17th district. The property is located on the northeasterly side of Vinings Cove, east of Vinings Walk. Is the applicant present? The director of the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to LUP 1? Is the applicant here for LUP 1?
John, my guess is the applicant's probably not here because during the planning commission, I think actually everybody came to agreement that
it was
if
rejected with 6
denied,
months.
Right. The planning commission recommended denial, giving them 6 months because I believe the applicant told the planning commission that they were going to be probably out of the house in 6 months.
That's right.
For the record, is the applicant for LUP 1 present? Is there any opposition to LUP 1? Okay, I'm going to defer to Commissioner Todd.
Based on my discussions with Mr. Terry and some of the homeowners in the area, and I think the reason nobody's here is because I think that the action was completed at the Planning Commission. So I'm going to make a motion to deny LUP 1 subject to the Planning Commission recommendations of delaying enforcement by code enforcement for 6 months.
Second.
There's a motion in proper section. Any comment? Call the question. The motion carries 5-0. I'd like to take a recess until 11:30 prior to going to other business. Thank you. Good morning and welcome back to the February 19th, 2013 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. We are to begin other business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today there are 8 items on your agenda, of which item number 8 was withdrawn or was it was actually continued until March 19th, 2013. The first item is to consider a site plan amendment for CVS Lot LLC regarding rezoning application Z40 of 1996. The property is located on the east side of Canton Road, south of Chastain Corners, and land lot 372 of the 16th District. The subject property was on site plan specific to a neighborhood retail commercial zoning category in 1996 for a retail building. The applicant has purchased the property, and he did that a couple years ago, and would like to amend the site plan to revise the parking lot configuration, the building location, and the building size. The applicant is planning on building a two-story brick building with retail on the first floor and offices on the second floor. The applicant's proposal does meet the requirements for zoning regarding parking, floor area ratio, impervious coverage, and building height. Additionally, the applicant would meet the requirements of the Canton Road Design Guidelines. If approved, all previous zoning conditions would remain in effect. At this time, we would ask the board to conduct a public hearing and consider the proposed site plan amendment.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak for or against other business item number 1? Please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Don Westbrook. I own the property, the LLC. And John covered it, I think, pretty well. I don't know of anything I should add. If anybody has any questions, I'll answer them.
Well, I appreciate it. It's always good to not add when you don't have opposition. Mr. Woodbury.
No kidding.
So, with that, I appreciate your you being here and seeing. Is there anyone wishing to speak for or against? The public hearing is now closed. I'm going to turn this over to the District Commissioner.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Westbrook.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm ready to make a motion. I just want to include Ms. Carol Brown's letter from Canton Road Neighbors dated January 31st in support of this for the record. And Karen, you have that for the record? Okay, thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Just a moment. I'm sorry, I forgot to ask if staff's recommendation.
Staff recommend the board approve the request.
Thank you. Good. I'm sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to approve other business item number 1 with just one stipulation according to the Canton Road guidelines that a pedestrian street light be installed. And the sidewalks are already existing, so but that's my motion to approve.
Subject to staff comments and recommendations.
And all previous stipulations
Great.
from zoning.
And can we also say subject to the site plan dated November 30th, 2012, which is the one in your packet?
Right.
Thank you. So we have
Correct.
we have a motion and we have a second. Any other comments? Call the question. Motion carries 5-0. Item 2, please.
Thank you. Item number 2 is to consider a stipulation amendment for Mr. Robert Feldberg regarding rezoning application Z70 of 2005. The property is located on the northeasterly side of Atlanta Road and on the northern side of Winchester Parkway in land lot 748 of the 17th District. The subject property is on neighborhood retail commercial for a commercial indoor recreation use, a printing business, or a church. The applicant would like to amend the permitted uses under NRC to allow other uses to expedite future leases on the property. During the December 2012 other business hearing for this property, the Board of Commissioners directed the applicant to present a list of permitted and prohibited uses for this property, and the list is approved to your other business item. We would ask the board to conduct a public hearing and consider the proposed stipulation amendment.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak for or against item number 2? Seeing and hearing none, this public hearing is closed. What is staff's recommendation?
Mr. Chairman, staff would recommend approval subject to the Board of Commissioners allowing all other uses under NRC except for those uses on the applicant's prohibited exclusion list, which is attached to your other business packet.
Thank you. Commissioner Ott.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And like John said, the applicant's list, basically what we have here is a copy of the code with the X's through which ones. And I just talked to Ms. Feldberg, and we're going to add a few. There's been a request by Ms. Barnes from Oakdale Community Association to add a few, and the applicant said he's okay with this. So what I'm going to add is rest homes, personal care homes, or convalescent homes, convenience food store with self-service fuel sales, Full-service gas stations, the applicants agreed to add this, but just kind of a note that the previous use of the property was indeed for a gas station, but in the interest, since the applicant's business is here, in order to put this in, it would probably best for it to come in as a rezoning to kind of address traffic and everything else. And then the last two would be funeral homes and car washes. And so my motion would be to approve other business item number 2 with all other previous stipulations, and then add the list that I just mentioned and all staff comments.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
A second. Any comments? Call the question. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Item 3.
Thank you. Item number 3 on today's agenda is to consider a site plan amendment for Mr. Terry Abney on behalf of Centennial Commons Homeowners Association regarding rezoning applications Z73 and Z135 of 2000. The property is located at the southeasterly intersection of Woodstock Road and Centennial Commons Drive, in land lot 1270 of the 21st District. The subject property was zoned site plan specific to RA5 for a 116-acre subdivision in 2000. This particular amendment is for the amenity area. The Homeowners Association would like to renovate and update the amenity area. The renovation plan includes relocating a playground, adding a storage room to a clubhouse, and adding a 22-foot by 56-foot patio adjacent to the pool. Additionally, they will be adding lights to the tennis courts and the playground area. After all the improvements, the impervious surface will be 33.4%, which is below the maximum of 40% for the subdivision. If approved, all previous zoning conditions would remain in effect, and we would ask the board to conduct a public hearing and consider the proposed site plan amendment.
Thank you. Is anyone wishing to speak? Please come forward, sir. This is item number 3. John, do you know if the applicant is here with us today? Thank you. Sir.
Good morning. My name's
Good morning.
Terry Abney. I'm a consultant working for the Homeowners Association for this project, and John explained it very well as far as what we're attempting to do here.
So you're representing the applicant then?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'll be glad
Please.
to answer any questions.
Yeah, that's fine. Yes. Are there any questions? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
The public hearing is now closed. What is staff's recommendation?
Mr. Chairman, staff would recommend the BOC approve the site plan amendment subject to the site plan dated January 8, 2013, with the district commission approving minor changes and all previous conditions not in conflict.
Thank you. Commissioner Burrow.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to approve other business item number 3 and all other stipulations from previous zoning remain in effect, not otherwise in conflict.
Include the site plan.
And the site plan dated, what's the date of the site?
January 11th.
It would be January 8th, 2013.
Mine's dated January 11th. Stated.
That's the date we received it, but the plan's actually dated January 8th in the title box. Both are right.
It's good to be young. It's good to be young.
Dated January 8th and received
January.
11.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion? There's multiple seconds. Any comments? Call the question. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Item 4, please.
Thank you. The fourth item on today's agenda is to consider granting a special exception for reducing the required lot size as recommended by the Board of Zoning Appeals from the December 12, 2012 variance hearing regarding variance application V96, Jimmy L. Walker. In accordance with a zoning ordinance amendment adopted by the Board of Commissioners on September 12, 2000 and amended on July 8, 2003, Section 134-271-8, any proposed or any use proposed for a parcel or tract of land that does not have the required minimum lot size required. Approval of a special exception by the Board of Commissioners is required after approval by the Board of Zoning Appeals. The variance analysis is attached for your review. The Board of Zoning Appeals did recommend that the variance be approved. At this point in time, we would ask the board to consider granting the special exception for lot size reduction.
Thank you. I'd like to open a public hearing for other business item number 4. Is anyone wishing to speak for or against? Seeing and hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Staff's recommendation is obviously approval because
yes, sir.
BZA approved it. Commissioner Keeper.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to approve subject to staff recommendations, planning recommendations. Should I add anything else to the list? Per the stipulations that have already been approved.
So that's
Is that
adequate,
sufficient?
correct?
Is that adequate?
That's
Okay.
very good.
Thank you.
There's a motion and a second. Any other comments? Call the question. Motion carries 5-0.
Item number 5 on today's agenda is to consider adopting the written decision to deny SLUP 6. Written there be Nesbith, September 18, 2012. Heard on December 18, 2012 for a property located on the west side of Burnt Hickory Road, south of Hadaway Road in land lot 261 of the 20th District. This case was considered on December 18, 2012 and was denied by the Board of Commissioners with direction to the county attorney to prepare a written denial. And the written denial has been passed to the clerk. And we would ask the board to consider approving the written decision of denial.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Gorham.
Yes, Mr. Peterson, to my knowledge, or Mr. Atkins, the board was able to look at this decision yesterday, so it's not as if, since it's being handed out, that it's the first look at this.
That is correct.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to adopt the written decision as presented.
Thank you. Second by Commissioner Ott. Any comments? Call the question. The motion carries 5-0.
Item number 6 on today's agenda is to consider a stipulation amendment for West Cobb Crossing LLC regarding rezoning application 194, 1988. The property is located on the south side of Dallas Highway, east of Barra Parkway, in land lot 27 of the 19th District. By way of background, the subject property was zoned general commercial for retail shopping use only in 1988. The property currently has a one-story strip shopping center on it. The applicant would like to amend the zoning conditions to allow a gold buying business to occupy one of the tenant spaces. Gold buying is a permitted use in general commercial. If approved, all previous zoning conditions would remain in effect. At this time, we would ask the board to conduct a public hearing to consider the proposed stipulation amendment.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak for or against item number 6? Mr. Huff.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Parks Huff with Sam's Larkin and Huff, and I represent the applicant in regards to this application. I understand that plan has a kind of a technical question in addition to it, so I wanted to just briefly address this. With me today is also Andy Porter, who's the property owner. He owned this property in 1988 when it was zoned, and they threw in a condition retail only, and he's got one. This is a shopping center with a Dunkin' Donuts on one side and a Subway on the other, and there's a small 720 square foot suite in the middle, and it's a challenge to rent given its size. And so what we're asking is the gold buying business be allowed in that suite only. And we've submitted a letter of agreeable stipulation dated February 19th after having a dialogue with Plan in regards to some signage issues. They're going to ask one additional signage request, and that is no electronic sign or no neon sign. The only thing I would say is that we will comply with the sign ordinance, and a sign in the window that says open, if it's allowed, I think is appropriate. I don't know why they should be restricted more than that. Partly because their hours may be on and off, so to have a sign that says open so you know it's open, I think would be terribly appropriate. So we ask that you approve this additional use. As staff pointed out, this could go in any of the other shopping centers around there because it's appropriate use and constitutional use in the category. And so we just would like this added to that, revise that stipulation, add this gold buying business. Thank you. Or
Thank you.
precious metal business.
Thank you, Mr. Huff. Yes, ma'am.
Again, I'm Marlene Elkins with Plan. The community has kind of mixed thoughts about this particular business going in there, but we realize that it's really being held up by technicality. We appreciate Mr. Huff working with us and coming up with a letter of stipulations, which I believe you have, dated February the 19th, 2013, and we are in agreement with those, except for a slight thing. We would like that the signage read no electronic or neon signs And we also would like step 5 to be clarified, to be sure that they understand that that refers to all vehicles and not just limited to trucks. There has been problem in the past with one of these establishments that has used PVC piping and banners and so on a truck to advertise, and we would like to tone that down a bit. Otherwise, that's our main concerns. We do wonder why it's going in this particular place, since there is a business 2 buildings east that buys and sells precious metal also. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is anyone else wishing to speak on other business item number 6? Seeing and hearing none, the public hearing is closed. What is staff's recommendation?
Mr. Chairman, staff would recommend you approve the stipulation amendment subject to the letter from Parks Huff dated February 19th, 2013, and all previous conditions not in conflict.
Thank you, sir.
I have a question, sorry.
Pardon me?
I have a question for clarification.
Sure.
Mr. Peterson, it states here in the background that gold buying is permitted within the GC zoning district. Just curious to know how it ended up coming before us for consideration.
What it is general commercial has about 40 to 50 different permitted uses in it.
Okay.
When this came in for rezoning in 1988, the board put a condition on it that's for retail use only.
Okay.
So it's only for that one use where they're actually selling stuff. They can't go in there and start buying stuff like a pawn shop or a gold buying business.
Okay, so that's
and they couldn't put
not
in like
included in
like
retail.
like a repair shop or something like that. It's only for retail use only.
Okay, so that's not included in retail, like a pawn shop
That's
or
right.
okay.
That's right.
Thank you. Commissioner Gorham.
Thank you. Mr. Huff, could you come forward, please? I think we need some clarification, and Ms. Elkins also, please, on the signage within the building itself. Your letter stipulates the business shall not have a flashing sign in the window. Mr. Huff, you made comments about an open sign. Is it agreeable if that open sign is lighted and not flashing? Yeah. Okay, I just want that clarified because I know there was some discussion about that. Okay. Also, Mr. Huff, in a previous zoning that I had on Garrison Ridge with the car rental place, I believe one of the stipulations was that they would not have any of those sign twirlers on the corner. Would your applicant be amenable to no sign twirlers on the sidewalk?
We would agree to that as it relates to this business, this additional business. What I can't agree to is there's 2 existing businesses in the shopping center.
Correct.
And I can't
correct
restrict them. I mean, if
Right,
the county
absolutely.
adopted an ordinance that dealt with that across the board, that's one thing. But so
okay.
yeah, as to this business,
As
we
to
would
this
agree
business.
to that. Yes.
Okay, thank you so very much. I appreciate that.
So number 4 is.
Oh, is it? Oh, there we go. Okay, yeah, you do have it at number 4. I'm sorry, you have that covered.
He didn't mention any twirling part, but
But you would not employ anyone on the sidewalk advertising. Thank you so much. You did have it covered. Okay, just want to make a general comment about gold buying business. And I know that Ms. Elkins shared with us that she feels there's some mixed feelings about that in the community. I have to tell you that there is a gold buying business, I don't know if you know that, on the corner of Due West and Due West, which I did not know, and it fronts Due West School, and I never knew it was there until I took a drive the other day to check it out and stuff. So I believe the business can be low in intensity, and that it is a retail trader because they are engaged in offering goods and services directly to the citizens, and it's not a pawn shop because it doesn't offer money for an item with the option to redeem that item within a period of time. So I do feel that it falls within the retail category. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to amend the zoning stipulation to allow a gold buying business in this development here. And if approved, all previous zoning stipulations will remain in effect, and also to include the letter that was dated February 19th, 2013. with no, all other zoning conditions and stipulations not otherwise in conflict.
Just for clarity for the future, can we add to number 3 that an open sign is permissible?
A lighted open sign is permissible within the facility.
As long as you're open. Is this motion, is there a second? Is a second, any comments? Call the question. Motion carries 5-0. Item 7, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Item number 7 is to consider approval of a site plan for Copeland Land Enterprises regarding rezoning application Z160 of 1998. Property located at the northwesterly intersection of Cobb Parkway and Acres Mill Road in land lot 948 of the 17th District. The subject property was rezoned to GC for commercial development in 1998. One of the zoning conditions required the developer to have the Board of Commissioners approve the final development plan for the property. The property currently has a bank on it and a retail store known as Men's Warehouse at the corner of Acres Mill. The applicant has submitted a proposed plan that places another building in between the 2 existing buildings on the property. The proposed building will be constructed of glass and stucco, will be 1 story in height, and will be 6,000 square feet in size. If approved, all previous zoning conditions would remain in effect. We would ask the board to conduct a public hearing and consider the proposed site plan approval.
I'd like to open a public hearing for item 7. Anybody wishing to speak for or against item number 7? Seeing and hearing none, the public hearing is closed. What is staff's recommendation?
Mr. Chairman, staff would recommend you approve the item subject to the site plan dated January 15th, 2013, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications, subject to the letter from John Moore dated February 13th, 2013, and all previous zoning conditions not in conflict.
Thank you. Commissioner Ott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jane, would you come up? And I just want to clarify, because if they have, when they go through plan review, just for the board's consideration here, if you look at the site plan, well, we can see it on what you have up there. Galleria Lane is actually a private road, and there was a little bit of confusion initially in the discussions between the applicant and DOT and staff that access point was actually an access point for the property. The current owners actually do not have an easement to use Galleria Lane. So I know that initially DOT, I think you all recommended closing completely their access on Acres Mill, correct?
Or converting it to a right in,
Right in, right out,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Are you okay with, have you seen Mr. Moore's letter?
I have.
And your DOT is okay with number 4, where if they do gain access to Galleria Lane, the conversion to right in, right out? But prior to that the entrance remain as is? I know it's not, the problem is right now, just so everybody knows, Acres Mill, as you can see, there's 4 lanes you're coming across, 2 turn lanes, and well, actually 5 lanes, because you have a, so the issue there is access. And unfortunately, without access to Galleria Lane, people going in there would have to come down 41, which does not have a decel lane. So what I'd like to go with is that we leave it as is, and I think we talked about trying to work with the applicant to gain access to Galleria Lane. And then their stipulation number 4 is that if they do indeed get it, that then they will convert the other one to right in, right out.
Yes.
Does that work?
I prefer to be right in, right out, but I'm willing, since it's an existing condition, we're okay to wait.
Okay, all right. Thank you. All right, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve other business item number 7, subject to all previous stipulations and conditions. Also, Mr. Moore's letter dated February 13th, 2013, with the kind of the note about the access. And kind of direct staff to try to work to resolve the issue, or help resolve the issue, so that we can get that converted to right in, right out. So that'd be the motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
A second, any comment? Call the question. Motion carries 5-0. Item number 8 has been continued till March, so I believe that concludes your other business agenda.
Yes, sir.
I believe that concludes our zoning agenda. just for the record, new cameras are adding 10 to 15 pounds to each of us. But they look great. Appreciate that. We've had some upgrades to cameras in the issue to make it easier for the people here and the people at home, and appreciate that upgrade. I think it's positive. I play with you. We are adjourned. Thank you. Do you want to